4 weeks have passed and now we return. A thrilling inaugural race at Silverstone ended in tricky mixed conditions, and that saw victory for Burst Esport by only 6 seconds over RHG Esports after 3 hours of racing. But it's time to head to the Eifel Mountains, and with that, one of the most challenging circuits on the calendar. And we're here for the 3 hours of the Nürburgring Nordschleife in the GT3 Endurance series by SimRacing.Club, round number 2. I'm your commentator, Cameron Roger, and joining me today is Hugo Barrow. And Hugo, what a track this is.
Yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic track. It's 15.7 miles or 25.4 kilometers, depending on which unit of measurement you use. And it's about 95 years old. Well, work started on it in 1925 and it was finished in 1927. So it's a really old track with a lot of history behind it, which is partly why it's so long. But it should provide a good level of racing tonight.
And we had a really good race last time out. Obviously, 3 hours of Silverstone.
First of all, radio check. If you can't hear me, let me know
from
via
the race director.
And yeah, pass that on.
He's just letting drivers know what to do.
I'll post that actually, so that people know I'm doing a radio
race
check.
Last time out, obviously, the standings pretty much go over the race result. But on screen here, you have the schedule for this season. So we have Imola next round out, followed by Portland, Indianapolis, Bathurst, Suzuka, and the TBA track, which may or may not be Spa. We'll find out soon. But I'm sure this race here in Nordschleife is going to bring us a lot of entertainment, as we've actually got a pretty good schedule going here this season.
Yeah, 8 races. So obviously not the most amount of races, which is going to mean each race is going to be very important. And you see with the Nürburgring, because it's so long, there's such an opportunity for variation for people to crash, that a finish around here, because it's the top 30 that get points, a finish out around here could make the difference between the end of the race.
Yeah, so last time out, we obviously, as you see on the screen now, is the standings. So the number 49 Burst Esports, they, as I mentioned earlier, won by only 6 seconds from RHG Esports, but involved there was also the number 3 Wanako car. But unfortunately, Nico Barkley's internet had a few other ideas, and they ended up having to rejoin the race. They did manage to salvage 1 point in the end, but they are potentially a team to look out for as we head into the next few races, because obviously they got quite a few points now, 49 points to catch up to Burst Esport, but also the 2 Drillers cars, the number 77 and the number 78 Pinsim Drillers Esports, they had a 1-3 in qualifying last time, but then they really dropped back in the race. So I think they probably need to improve their race pace a little bit. But as we know, that is going to be very hard around the Nordschleife.
Yeah, it's all going to be about consistency over racecraft, because there is only that short section at the start of the lap through the GP part where it's the easiest point to make overtakes. Once you get into the Nordschleife, that's when it's just trying to keep it on the black stuff, because if you go off, there is not much forgiving runoff. It's all grass and then it's straight into the barrier. So it's all going to be about what you can do out of Geldenkopf onto the Dottinger Höhe and down through the GP section.
And that back straight is going to be an interesting point for the race, because as you mentioned, you can't really overtake too much before that as you're going around the Nordschleife itself, because there aren't really too many dead straight sections to get slipstream. But then once we get onto that back straight on the Dottinger Höhe, seeing the difference between the different chassis, and obviously there's a bit of a BOP coming into play with that as well, but also what wing angle people choose for, because it is such a long straight. It's over 3 kilometers long, so if you can get a nice slipstream all the way up there, you'll easily make an overtake. But you need that wing for the corners, because there are some pretty high speed corners as well out on the Nordschleife. So seeing that balance of what teams have chosen is going to be quite interesting, because obviously the lower you go, the quicker you're going to be in a straight line, but then you're potentially losing a lot of time in the corners that matter.
Yeah, and speaking of the BOP, I mean, the Audi and Bentleys have all seen a decent improvement, as has the Porsche. The Corvette, though, that's been hit hard by the BOP. The BMW and Aston Martins have also taken a bit of a hit. McLaren 720, slightly better now with the Mercedes as well. Now we only have one Mercedes car. They didn't do too well last time, so they'll be looking to do much better this evening. And of course, with this race being more about whether you finish rather than where you finish, that is going to play into the whole championship quite a lot tonight.
Yeah, an interesting point on that BOP is I was having a look, and in terms of the fastest lap of the race back in Silverstone, only the top 4 were Corvettes with Burst, the 2 Drillers, and R8G. But then behind them was 6 BMWs. So the BMW is certainly a pretty competitive car, and I can tell you in the background as well, 3 out of the top 5 in qualifying, as we will get to in a moment, are BMWs as well. So I think maybe the Corvette isn't quite so strong here, which is looking pretty good, because some people were a bit concerned that the Corvette might be a little bit overpowered, but maybe that BOP is coming into play a little bit there as well.
Yeah, I think the BOP is going to make a fair amount of difference, especially through the really fast turns. Well, some of them anyway, around the Nordschleife section, but also along the Dottinger Höhe, because the impact of wing as well, because setup is going to be really important, because the drivers have been trying to find the balance between what's quickest and also what's safest. So that's all going to come into play this evening, and it could come out with quite an interesting result.
Yeah, safety is the big talking point of this track. Because it's so long, the time that you can lose is obviously quite a lot. And we saw, I think it was about 20 seconds difference between the fastest and the slowest in qualifying. So there's certainly quite a lot of time that you can lose. But if you can be just that fraction slower and take just a little bit less risk, then that might get you further into the race. And as you know, in a 3-hour race, anything can happen, but getting to the end of that race is where the points are given.
Yeah, as you say, a few tenths a lap that you lose could be completely outweighed by an extra pit stop because of damage, or just the amount of time you could lose from a relatively big piece of damage. So that is, quite a thing people are going to be looking out for. And because there's so many turns around this track, because it's so long, there's a lot more variables for where people can go off to. And that is one of the main reasons safety is such a big point for the drivers tonight.
Yeah, certainly is. And drivers now just in the background having a bit of a warm-up before we get to this race. And obviously with it being such a long lap, we normally see a formation lap, but because it is such a long track, the grid has been moved to the Dottinger Höhe, so we will only have a short start to the race, so we don't have to do a full outlap. Then it'd obviously be as will be with every race this season, it will be a 3-hour race. And the interesting thing for that with these GT3 cars is, what do you do on the fuel and tires? Obviously fuel is give or take an hour, but obviously then if you can go maybe slightly longer into your final hour, then you can take some fuel out of the car and have a shorter pit stop where you can save some time. Also, if you want to maybe double stint a set of tires so that you only have to change tires once during the race, that could also be an opportunity. With this being a fairly difficult track to overtake, you might see some teams actually trying a couple of wacky little strategies, trying to get the edge on their competitors.
And as you're saying about strategy, the teams are going to have to be careful though, because it is a roughly 8-minute lap, and if they take too big of a risk, they do have the real chance of running out of fuel halfway around the Nordschleife, and that could have a really big impact. So yeah, the strategy definitely going to come into play. We'll see how risky the teams get with that, and whether that has an impact of any of them as they head through Hassenbach now.
Yeah, that strategy, or that fuel, as you say, running out, could be quite a interesting factor with calculating your final pit stop as well, because you don't know exactly when the leader is going to cross the line. So if the leader crosses the line with maybe, 20 seconds left, that's too much time for them to back off and finish the lap. So that means you're going to have to do an extra lap. And obviously teams, they have to have their engineers and people behind the scenes helping them, trying to work out exactly what they're going to do with the fuel, because I was being told by a couple of drivers earlier that the fuel might not even reach the hour, which means there might have to be some sort of splash and dash towards the end of the race for some of these teams.
And if there is, it's going to be really hectic in the pit lane towards the end, and that would actually be really interesting to see which teams play it right and if any teams play it wrong, and maybe having quite the sprint race in the final stages of the race. But of course they've got to get to the final stages. But yeah, that strategy is going to be quite a big one for these drivers.
And from the last race, there's a couple of penalties for Some of the teams got the number 11 Pro Sim Tech. They got 2 drive-through penalties. So at the end of, well, when after they get applied, they'll have to come in, but then they have to go around all the way around again and come in to do their second one as well. And that's the same for Blackbirds. The number 80, they've also got 2 drive-through penalties. And then the number 82 Core Sim Racing, they've got a drive-through, as well as Vargas Sim Racing have a 10-second stop and hold. So those teams, those 4 teams, will be having a little bit of time loss at the beginning. But we were just saying before going live, this isn't necessarily the worst track to have a penalty due to its size.
No, definitely not. On other tracks such as Silverstone, if you have a drive, actually Silverstone's probably not the best example because that pit lane does cut out a fair bit of the track. But this track, it is quite a good track to have those initial drive-throughs because it could get you into clean air and potentially just give you a cleaner track, and that you'd be able to set a consistent pace faster and not run the risk of going off or hitting other drivers.
Yeah, hitting other drivers is certainly what you don't want to be doing, as obviously as always, especially at the start of the race, there's the orange zone, which can get you a double penalty if you get a penalty there. But also, talking about orange zones, because of the size of the track, we are not doing a full code 80. We're having sort of a sectioned code 80, which works to do with the sectors on the lap. So there's sort of going to be more localized cautions, and penalties to do with them are also being judged as an orange zone. So there is a potential to get double penalties this race, but the drivers are now just lining up, and we're seeing the grid on your screens now. It's 5th place Borja Milan and Russo in 6th for Go Team Racing. Then we got Pin Sims Drillers, so a little bit lower than they were last time, followed by the Knight of Velux as well. Then we got One Move Esports, Pescara, ATP Autotelli, another Knight of Velux car, and also the other Pin Sim Drillers. So Drillers have been struggling a little bit here, and as you see the other few cars come through, I can say your top 4 is Burst Esports of Yene Simitrich, followed by Williams, Ben Q in 2nd place with Martin Stefanko, then Erhan Yuyovsky in 3rd, and Leon Bock for Evolution in 4th place. But the drivers will now be coming down through the Tiergarten, and they will then be working their way onto the start-finish straight, where we will get the green flag. Let's see the last few teams here. We do have a total of 35 cars here. There is a potential for 40, but obviously a couple of teams not showing up here. So we've, as you mentioned, got the number 49, Yeni Simčić. This was the car that won last time out in Silverstone, followed by Martin Stefanko in the number 23, and they had a little bit of a difficult race. So let's see what is going to happen for the 3 hours of the Nürburgring Nordschleife here for GT3 Endurance. And as they get towards start-finish line, green flag will be called, and then we'll be going racing. So when are they going to go? Got the whisper call, so we are coming down. When is we going to start? When is green flag going to be called? It's a very long wait for these guys, obviously trying to be very close, and they've been called green flag, so we're going racing here. Coming into turn number 1, Yeni Simčić is holding on to that race lead. However, Erhan Yuyovsky is now trying to come around the outside, trying to get past the number 23 of Martin Stefanko. Goes for a little bit spin, actually, so that leaves Leon Bock to be able to come through as well. So Stefanko's lost a few places here now. Borja Milan is trying to get involved as well, up there in 5th place. So that's not been a good start at all from Stefanko. He's already gone down 2 places. And now Wanako trying to get close again as we come now into the second part of the GP track. So that was really not a good start, really not what you wanted, but Erhan Yuyovsky, they're getting up a position. Now these 2 Corvettes can try and pull away a little bit at the front.
Yeah, now we have the winners from last race, who also had the fastest lap of the race. They're leading now. They've had a good start. You can see they're already building up a little bit of a gap, the Erhan Yuyovsky and Simčić. However, we're down to Decor here in 7th. He's behind 1 more Corvette. Quite an interesting start, not a good start for the Williams Ben Q car, having that slight contact, and you can see up ahead, it's not going too well. He's going to have to look for a move down the inside. However, he's not going to be able to take that 4th place off of Milan quite yet, but not the ideal start. You don't want to be dropping positions because it's going to be a lot of work trying to take them back. But here comes the Crow down the inside of Hemmingsen into the fast chicane. He's going to have to back off there as we head towards the Nordschleife part of the circuit for the first time this evening.
It's such a difficult little chicane there to try and get past, but some people, I'm sure you'll see throughout the race, are going to be trying this. But yeah, Stefanko another place down, losing out to Milan as well on that lap. So Stefanko from second down to 5th place for Williams. That isn't going to be ideal for them, considering they didn't have the absolute best race out in Silverstone either. But we're looking at a pleasure here for core team as we come into this nice twisty section at the start of the Nordschleife. This is one of my favourite parts of the track because you can go all over the curbs here. But yeah, you don't want to be going over the grass there like Martin Hemmingsen. As we mentioned, yeah, drillers struggling a little bit compared to where they were last race. And interesting that they switched up. Henry Sinnick is not starting the car. It's actually Martin Hemmingsen. But they are under big pressure now from Mathieu de Crop as we come up this really long twisting back straight.
Yeah, and this is a really roller coaster of a track. You can see the drivers fling it through that first part of this circuit there. And we're going to be running on board with Mathieu de Croo in that Bentley. Now, with the Bentley having been given a bit of a buff in the BOP, and Martin Hemmingsen on the grass, that's going to be a big crash already on the first lap. He's in the barrier, and he's back on the track as well. I think he hasn't harmed anyone else, but that is not how you want to start a race.
Oh yeah, he's dropped down to 17th place. How has he not lost his rear wing? That was a huge moment for Hemmingsen. He's definitely going to have some suspension damage. That was a really big hit, as we see Beto Bello getting penalty in the top of your screen as well. As Yoyovsky's all over the back of Simčić, but this is really not good for him, and he's going to be holding up quite a few of these cars actually, as he tries to get a bit further back up the order, but he's definitely going to have some damage as well.
And you can see here Jonathan Provost for the undercover sim racing car right next to Ollie McGowan. Speedy Mike just about getting ahead in that car. Can he hold on to it? No, he's used the car in front as a defensive tactic, slightly on the grass there, but that was very nice from Provost, using Rodrigo Lorito, who just got a penalty. And you can see in the top left, quite a few drivers getting a penalty, but here comes Ollie McGowan back down the inside. There's slight contact as the door was shut on him by the Bentley driver. Luckily, he hasn't gone into the barrier, but we're getting this view from Grabenk. Can that Speedy Mike car get past the Bentley? And there's a car off the track. That's Lorito. He's all over the place. He's going to hold on to it, though. He did touch the barrier. And you can see quite a hectic start on the Nordschleife.
Yeah, look at all these cars. They're staying so close together. As I see a couple of drivers are holding up the pack. Well, it's really Hemmingsen actually. He's holding these guys up pretty badly. And Lorito is actually one of the drivers who we mentioned before from the Blackbirds entry. They've actually got 2 drive-through penalties in a number 80. So he's going to have to struggle his way back. But we're looking at the front as Yoyovsky is getting the slipstream all the way up this back straight, even though it's not a straight at all, especially when you get up to the mud curve up here. It's a really fast left-hander. So to overtake into that is really not what you want to do. So you've got to be very smart, as we see a bit of side-by-side action just behind. I think it's Borja Milan getting past Bock as well as Stefanko as well. So Bock has lost 2 places there going into the mud curve. So I said you can't overtake there, but he's just lost 2 places. But that is what happens sometimes when one car comes past, the other one can work their way through as you're a bit offline.
Yeah, and that's good for the Williams guys, because that's the start of their fights back to gain those positions they've lost. We've got yellows on the track. I think we're going to be seeing the yellow flag quite a lot as they head through the carousel for the first time. This is Mathieu de Croo behind Leon Bock. This might not be the best lap for Bock if this Bentley can make his way past, because they are heading towards the Tottinger Horn now. Oh, onto the curb. That is very scary for de Croo. He's held on to that position, but now he's going to be having to look in his own mirrors at Luigi Russo behind him in the BMW M6.
Yeah, I can tell you we've already had 3 DNFs from this race, unfortunately, on this first lap as well. We got a Plever without a rear wing, and Lorito as well had a big spin on the back straight. So there's already 5 cars who are not looking too good in this race, and de Croo almost joined them a couple of corners ago as well. He's got another yellow in sector 2. Now coming into Brunchen, got to see what these drivers can do, because this is the part of the track where you need to get yourself in position, because as you mentioned, the Duttinger Herd's coming up, and that is really the only place to overtake, as I can tell you. Martin Hemmingsen has also crashed, and he's lost a wheel, so I think this might be the number 77 Drillers, who looked so promising in the first race of the season. They might be out of the race already in this second race.
That does not look good at all for Pinsim, and I don't think they're going to be going anywhere. And yeah, as you're saying, this is just going to be a race of attrition as we head up towards the Kleiner Carousel, or the Kleines Carousel, sorry. Got to get the cases right. And that leads us on to the Döttinger Höhe. And this could be the opportunity for Erhan Jajowski, for the R8G esports car, to get past the championship leaders, actually, after the first round at Silverstone. You can see they're already slightly pulling away from P3. That gap up to a second, but now just 3/10 as they head along the Döttinger Höhe. Now you can see not the flattest straight, but definitely a very long one. They'll be heading through the Antonius Bucher into Tiergarten before they even have to brake for that final chicane. You can see getting very close now. Within a 1/10 of a second goes Erhan Jajowski. Can he take that position in the slipstream? You can see he's getting as much speed as possible. He doesn't seem to be pulling out of the slipstream just yet. In fact, he's backing off, it looks like, as they head through Tiergarten towards the final part of the track now. And I think he decides to back off there, maybe leaving it to the GP section. Maybe he doesn't think he'll be able to defend it too well through the first part of the lap, which is why he's decided to back off there, or maybe he just thought it was too risky.
I think that is a bit of fuel saving. Simčić is a very strong driver. He isn't going to be making too many mistakes, so I think Jajowski is just going to sit there behind and try and get a bit of fuel, because from what I'm being told, you need to save a lap or two of fuel to try and get the fuel mileage, especially out of these Corvettes with that big naturally aspirated V8 using a lot of fuel. As we're now seeing Sansano for Speedy Mike. 26th position. He's trying to get past the Flying Goat, which is the only Mercedes in the whole field. He goes all over the grass there, manages to collect that as it comes through Tiergarten. And then now through the final chicane out onto the back straight. This could be a good opportunity, because as you said, it is quite hard to potentially defend here down into turn 1, because you get this really nice run. And the Porsche getting very close. He may be doing a bit of lifting as well there. Unfortunately, I can't hear his engine, but he might be doing a bit of lifting and saving as well. As now Flying Goat is trying to get really close to position number 22, the Scuderia Muscala car, but can't quite overtake just yet. So I think there's a bit of fuel saving going on here for a number of these teams. And
that is completely understandable, because getting the position on track but having to do an extra pit stop might actually be the worst strategy. But we can see Simčić still holding that lead, the gap behind at 3/10 of a second. This is Borja Milan though. He is not too far behind these guys. He's looking a little bit clear to the rear. Behind him, Martin Stefanko in the Williams Esports Ben Q, as we head towards Hatzenbach for the first part of the Nordschleife. You can see he's closed up a fair bit there. That gap now under half a second. So as they head through this first part of the section where they really are just flinging it through the turns, is he able to close up, or is the Corvette, even with its BOP, still very strong? I mean, this is a BMW, so it's not the slowest, but it does look like the Corvette is still strong even after the BOP changes.
Yeah, obviously the BOP in general is to try, well, as the name suggests, it's supposed to be a balance, so it's not supposed to suddenly make the Corvette all of a sudden slower either. And obviously, Jajowski and Simčić are two of the best sim racers in rFactor 2 as well. So it's good to see them at the front. But it seems that Milan and Stefanko are staying with them pretty well. Bocca's dropped off a little bit from these guys, but this top 4 is getting very close. And it's just showing you that this BMW is very strong, especially around this Nordschleife seemingly, which is always good to see. But I do wonder if they're just going to sit behind Simčić just for a little bit, not only because it's a little bit difficult to overtake on the Nordschleife, but purely for that fuel saving aspect as well. But the issue for Jajowski is now he's being attacked from behind. Obviously last lap he was easily able to stay past, but Milan might get a double slipstream and get both of them if they're not careful.
Yeah, he is going to be looking behind, and that's not particularly what you want when you're fuel saving, to be in a car sandwich. But it is good to see so many cars so close together for the lead of the race around such a track. And you can see now there's 3 BMWs behind, but the Bentley actually, that's doing a good job there down in 6th position with Mathieu Decaux at the wheel. He's going to be looking to catch up. You can see the Williams guys just behind these top 3 now. They're going to be looking for a point to make a pass, but it might not come during this part of the lap. This part of the lap, they're just going to be trying to stick close as they can to each other and just try and stick it there until the next opportunity to overtake, which is usually along a straight, and that straight is usually the Dossinger Hole.
Yeah, certainly is. We're going to get a replay here. This is Martin Hemmingsen, so this will be on that first lap. Coming through Schradencross, but he just goes too wide on the grass. I do not understand how he didn't lose his rear wing, but he did actually a pretty good job there to park it nicely on the outside of the corner and obviously rejoin. However, that car is now out of the race. As we saw earlier, he lost that rear wing and rear wheel in a collision with someone else a bit further around on that first lap. So unfortunately for number 77, Pinson Drillers, they are now out of this race.
Yeah, it's a shame to see quite a few cars go so early on, but such is the nature of the Nürburgring, and I don't think that's the last we're going to see of DNS tonight. Well, yeah, it's essentially a race of attrition. It's all about making it to the end for most drivers before you think about what position you're actually going to finish on. But you can see here, that doesn't seem to be deterring Simoncic and Yayovsky, because they are still going at it. And I mean, Milan behind as well. He's sticking it with them. So we could see some interesting racing between these 3 drivers.
Yeah, now it's Stefanko who's starting to drop off a little bit. Obviously, you know, a couple of mistakes here and there can always allow it to drop off. But you can see how slowly these guys go at the front, because Stefanko's already caught back up really in those few corners. And even Bock, De Krop and Russo as well are all getting so close. So that just shows you that these guys at the front aren't pushing away. And getting the fuel mileage is probably the most important strategy, because saving a lap of fuel around the Nordschleife is very intense, because it's about 5 times longer than a normal track. So you've got to save about 5 times more fuel than a normal track if you want to save a lap as well. So got to be very careful with how you do that. But these GT3s, having got the update a couple of months ago, they do now have fuel mixtures. So they have mix 1 to 4, 4 being the most. So I'm sure a lot of these drivers will be turning the mixers down a little bit. But obviously that also benefits the tyre wear as well. So quite a lot of strategic options going on in this first stint, I would suggest.
And it's another point to mention that Hohe Acht, which is where they've just been, slightly after the carousel, that is just next to the highest points in the Eiffel Mountain. So you have quite a long time of going uphill, because this is such a vast track in the Eiffel Mountains. There's a lot of uphill, and you've got to take these cars all the way up. And you can see now that Milan has actually dropped off slightly as we head onto the latter part of the Nordschleife. And you can see there that Stefanko is being able to catch up with it, as is Bock. However, there's still a little bit of room, and there are yellows in Sector 1. I'm not quite sure why that is.
Yeah, Sector 1, that's quite far away from these guys, so it must be someone who's had a bit of an issue somewhere. I think it's Christopher Whitehouse. He has had to rejoin the race. He's a couple of laps down. I'm not quite sure why he did have to rejoin, but either way, he is he's actually behind some people who have DNF'd, such as the way that works. But I think he had a bit of a spin on his outlap. Always Milan goes there for a big spin. He is going to potentially collect another car. Oh, the Go Team Racing. So Russo couldn't get out of the way. So Milan, this is a really awkward position, because this is obviously next to a really fast corner. He's got to be careful as the Pescara car is now trying to avoid as well. So that is a very dangerous situation for those drivers. Milan's going to have to be very careful. He's going to lose a big chunk of time, as we saw. Russo now without a rear wing. So that is not good for him. He's going to be losing a lot of time, as well as Milan. So that Monaco car is really not the best start to the season here.
That is really unfortunate. And I have to say, De Croo was very, very lucky in managing to get past, because the Go Team car behind him just couldn't squeeze through. And that is one of the things about this track. It's so narrow that if you go off, there's a very big chance of taking other drivers with you. And that is a big shame. Luckily, I think that the slowdown will be going soon. Jene Simicic, though, has set the fastest lap with an 8-minute 08.
Yeah, so that's about 10 seconds. Oh, we actually see Milan crabbing there. Actually, look at that. His car's pointing a little bit to the left, so he's going to have to come in for some damage repairs. Donut Prodan is coming in for Volante as well, so they had a bit of an issue with that. Russo's going to be coming in, so that so unfortunate that it has collected other cars, but that's just the type of corner that is. Unfortunately, they're all going to have to come in for some repairs, and we're going to see a little bit of a replay here. So Milan is now coming up over the crest, just runs too wide, hits his rear left there on the grass, and unfortunately that sends him into a spin. But because it's such a blind corner, or as you see De Crop, they're getting very, very lucky. Because it's such a blind corner, these guys had no chance, absolutely no chance to avoid him. And Borja actually did somewhat of a good job to avoid the potential carnage that could have caused. So yeah, Russo, Prodan and Milan all serving pit repairs right now.
That is very unfortunate for them, but I think they were lucky, to be honest, because that's a blind corner. They're going so fast, but you can see how dangerous the grass is on that track, because his tyres hardly touched it, and that was him round. So the drivers are going to be watching out for that, because it's all about making it to the end this evening. I know I keep saying it, but that's going to be really important, because if you have to come in to the pits for repairs, you're going to lose a lot of time that you wouldn't lose if you were just a second or two slower on track.
And this is what I mentioned before about just losing a couple of tenths. Had he not pushed, just 1 or 2% less, and he just saved that little bit of time and didn't go that wide, he would have then not crashed. Pretty simple. So you have to balance that, how much you push and how much you just save a little bit. And considering how the race was going, I mean, Simicic is clearly not pushing too much. Obviously, he's going a lot faster than quite a few drivers, but he's still not pushing too much. So there was no real need to push hugely. And obviously, mistakes happen, and that is why we come endurance racing. But yeah, it's a little bit of a silly error, and I think Borja will be ruining that, especially as they had a bit of a bad race one as well.
I think Joy, although they did leave the pits, I think they're out now because they're back in. But yeah, we saw just there what kind of things can happen, and you saw they lost the rear wing, so that's definitely repairs, as well as the crabbing for the other BMW. That is also probably a relatively hefty repair job, because that's going to be suspension damage, and suspension damage isn't going to be what you want around this track, as the Beta Bello does get a penalty, and I think we're going to be seeing quite a few penalties around here because it is so easy to make a mistake.
Yeah, that may actually be his second one, because I think he was one of the drivers who had the pre-race penalties before from Silverstone. So yeah, I think he was one of those other drivers, but either way, not good to be serving those, because obviously now he is down in 24th position, and he has another penalty to go, so he's going to be losing even more time. And as we mentioned before, losing time is not what you want to do. You've got to control how much time you're pushing, how much time you're giving up. And it seems that I think Simcic may be starting to push a little bit more now, because this top lot has really started to spread out a bit. And obviously, it didn't help with Borja getting involved with a number of cars behind during his spin, but these three are starting to pull away a little bit from Evolution, and one move there down in 5th place.
I mean, we're only 20 minutes into a 3-hour race, so we have got a long way to go, and I think the starting 20 minutes might have set the tone for the rest of the race. We will see how it turns out, but now I think that, yeah, as you said, Simicic, he is beginning to push out a bit, and you're just trying to increase that gap behind it to Jajowski. That gap, of course, being half a second. Now, he doesn't seem to be able to be getting it much bigger, so I think Jajowski just wants to stay behind. Maybe that slipstream is helping him along the straights to try and conserve fuel. We'll have to see, or maybe he just doesn't want to drop back enough so that he starts losing time, and the time that he can't regain again.
Yeah, it's very difficult to regain time on the top drivers. Got to be very, very careful indeed. But you see, Jene Simicic, he's a VEC champion, double FSR champion. He won one of the All-Star seasons as well. Well, the very first race. back in March as well, so he's won a lot of top competitions, so he definitely knows what he's doing. And Yujovski as well, obviously a VEC champion as well, and he's won numerous of the BMW M2 Cup that comes around only the Nordschleife as well, so he's done thousands of laps around here, so a lot of talent during with these two drivers, and obviously Stefanko in his own right, also on other platforms being very successful. So these top three are really showing their caliber by getting out the front here. And it looks like Stefanko is actually now a little bit closer to Yujovski, as Yujovski's lost a little bit of time to Simicic.
Yeah, you're right. That's about 6/10 of a second out here. And Yujovski's lost about almost a second there to Simicic. So maybe he's decided to back off, or maybe Simicic is too quick. But Stefanko, this is going to work in his favour, of course, because he is beginning to close up to that second place car. Maybe try and take it, and you can see it here is Fernando Carato for the Pushrod Racing team behind that McLaren. And I have to say, it looks like one of the rear lights of that Muscala McLaren is out, but he's going to make a move around the left-hand side. You can see getting very close onto the marble, and he's managed to stick that there. Can he hold on to it? And Andre Muscala is going to have to let that go.
Yeah, Muscala doing a good job there just to back out, because that is not a corner where you want to be going side by side at all. And I just had a quick look down. So the other driller's car, your pole position sitter actually from last time out, Antonovsky's driving, they're down in 10th place at the moment, so didn't have the best qualifying and currently down in that 10th position. So regarding the championship, a potential contender is once again struggling here a little bit. And we do say, points do go down to 30th, but obviously with there being 50 points for a win, if you're getting 10th, 15th place all the time, you're not going to be scoring that many points. So even though you are getting points, you're not really helping yourself that much. You've got to be getting these top results, and that is certainly what these three at the front are trying to do. But it seems that they're spread out maybe a little bit too much for Slipstream on this lap.
Yeah, it looks like it, although they might be able to close up ever so slightly. As you were saying though, in not the longest of championships, each set of points they get is going to have a lot of value, and that 10-point difference from first to second is extreme, and that multiple firsts could win or lose the championship. And it does go to show how important those top spots are as we head through Tiergarten now towards the Grand Prix part of this track. You can see Stefanko did definitely close up a little bit there. He's 4/10 behind. Could maybe go for a move along the pit straight into that T1, because it is very heavy braking zone downhill as well. So we'll see how this all plays out.
And it seems that Stefanko has caught up just a little bit as Simicic sets a new best time of a 7.4. So he is starting to push just a little bit more. That is a second or so faster than, about a second actually faster I should say, than the second lap of the race. So we've only completed 3 laps, which is the length of this lap. So he is starting to push just that little bit extra. And I think that is probably what he needs to do, considering how close these guys are sitting. But maybe he's saved most of the fuel that he needs and is trying to now pull maybe a little bit of a gap. But obviously pulling away from Yujovski and Stefanko is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the fuel around this track is going to mean we're going to see a lot of back and forth between these top drivers. You can see just off in the distance, P4 there, that's the Evolution Motorsports driven by Leon Bock. He's going to be looking to catch up to these guys, but that is quite the task because they are so quick. Although I say that, the last lap, the Yujovski, his was invalidated. Now, Tom Kubik in the Tom Kubik in the core team car is in the pit, so maybe some damage there because we're only 25 or so minutes into the stint, so that'll be interesting to see why that is.
It certainly will, and this, as I come through that chicane, that just reminds me that there's obviously track limits around this lap, like there is on all laps in rFactor 2. But because of the nature of this track, as you see as they come through this part, you see just how big these curbs are. And also if you touch the grass like Milan did earlier, you're generally going to spin out on most corners. where you're sort of trying to push on the car a little bit. But if you look here through these curbs, they're so big that it's really difficult to actually go off the track limits. But especially on the GP track, there is a couple of times where you can go that all four wheels off and get a track cut. And obviously, again, track cuts will eventually lead you to a drive-through penalty. So that is something that the drivers will have to factor in at the specific corners where it is possible.
Yeah, definitely. And it does all add up. And as you were saying, it's not too easy to cut the Nordschleife, but the Grand Prix section of the track, it's a lot more forgiving than this part here. You can see yellows in sector 2. Bettabello has gone in to serve another one of his penalties. I think he's been picking up quite a few during his first stint, but now we have Stefanko closing up a fair amount as we head towards Arenberg, I believe. And through here, back downhill again towards the Vauxhall, or the Foxhole. And an interesting thing about the Foxhole is it was named that because they had to temporarily stop building the track around this point, and in one of the drainage pipes, a fox made his home, so the workers decided to call it the Foxhole. So that's an interesting bit of trivia you can take away this evening.
That is actually quite a fun fact, but obviously we are in the middle of the Eiffel Forest, so there's a bunch of wildlife there. And I've had the pleasure of actually going to this track in real life, and if anyone else has, you'll just see there's just trees everywhere, as you would expect with it being a forest, but there's just trees absolutely everywhere, and obviously there's just so much wildlife there, and I'm not surprised that a fox made its home during the building of this track. But obviously that was a while ago now, but it's good to see that the names like that have stuck, because there are a few interesting names for some of the corners of this track.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some of them named, I think it's, yes, Galgenkopf is named after the former gallows of the Earl of Nuremberg. So there's some rather morbid names of turns as well, but because it spans such a vast area, it's got so much history that it covers, and some of it is really interesting.
Yeah, certainly is one of the, one of the oldest tracks there is in the world. Obviously, in terms of purpose-built tracks, that is. And it's quite amazing that we're still going here, and we still have the Armco just, 5 meters to the side of the track as well. That it hasn't been, quotation marks, ruined with all this runoff and tarmac and everything. And I think that's why drivers love coming here. And especially it's good to see that while the GT3 Endurance calendar just naturally follow the same calendar as VEC, Sean Jacobs, the director, chose to come to the Nordschleife, as we're now seeing Jurowski get right in the back of Simoncic again. But I'm wondering, is he going to finally choose a time to overtake? We are now about halfway through this first stint, so maybe time to try and start making an overtake, especially Stefanko is getting very close here.
Yeah, I just noticed that Stefanko is right up behind, so maybe they've both chosen to hit it at the same time. Jurowski, if he's going to make a move, he's going to try and make it as quick as possible so as to reduce the amount of fuel and tyres he's using. But we're now going to go to Timotej Andonovski, the remaining Pinson Drillers Callaway Corvette. He's right behind Felipe Barreto in the Ramada Motorsport Bentley even, and there's contact. He tries to go in the left, that door was closed. To the right, the Ramada closes it as well. Is that Bentley going to be parking it all over the track? It looks like it, because you can see Andonovski really close behind, still not able to find anywhere through as we head to the next braking zone. Still pretty high speeds around here, and he's just not able to find that way forward. I think Barreto there, it's relatively interesting defense tactics, but if they work, I suppose.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially around here, it's so thin at certain parts of the track. Maybe not just in terms of the actual width of the tarmac, but in terms of the width of the racing line, or possible racing lines. That obviously allows you to defend maybe in slightly different ways, but Andonovski is getting very close, and I'm sure he will be a little bit disappointed that he is that far down and will be wanting to try and make a move on this fourth lap of the race. But it seems that he can't quite get close enough just yet. But I'm sure he will try and work his way forward once again. But as you mentioned, it's really those few straights on the track that you can make the overtakes. On this part of the track, it is very, very difficult unless the car ahead makes a mistake.
Yeah, and I have to say that Bentley looks absolutely huge on the Nordschleife. It's already a big car, but put it on a narrow track, and yeah, he's able to take up about half of the tarmac. But that must be what it feels like if you're trying to overtake him anyway. And up at the top, I've noticed that those gaps have been able to spread out a bit. So nothing came from Yovski or Stefanko's push. They're going to hold on to their positions for now. Maybe leave it to the next lap. We'll have to wait and see.
So some people we haven't really mentioned too far yet is actually just outside of this top 5. We've got Christian Michel for Notavelix number 30. We've got Francesconi for the number 8 Pescara team as well. And then Max Barkley in the other Notavelix number 60. So those cars just sitting there quite quietly, but inside the top 10 ahead of this Barretto and Danowski battle that we are following as well. So still quite a few drivers in there. Top 10 covered by a total of 40 seconds as Yovski once again gets very close. Is he going to finally decide to pull the pin and make an overtake? Or is he just going to try and save a little bit more fuel? Because obviously it will get to a certain point where he will have saved enough fuel to do the certain lap count that he wants. And obviously then there's no point saving extra fuel because it's just kind of going to be dead weight because you're not going to use it. So there is obviously a limit. Obviously, they're still trying to go on this strategy. So Yovski is starting to look. So he is trying to make SimRacing think about it a little bit. As we know, 3-hour race. No reason to do anything too crazy just yet.
Yeah, you can see every now and then they all try and have a go at each other. And you can see that with Stefanko as well. Because whenever Yovski goes, Stefanko follows too. So it looks like it might not be SimRacing dictating these top 3. But it could actually be the middle man here because he is choosing, well, that's what it feels like anyway. He's choosing the pace at which these guys are going. As they head through the GP part now, is he going to go for a move? You can see he is quite close. However, I think he's just going to stay behind for now and leave it till the end of the lap. It looks like it anyway, because they all seem to be quite comfortable in their current positions, even though they do keep trying to have a little pot shot at each other every once in a while.
Yeah, it's one of those sort of awkward situations where your racing instincts are telling you you're faster than this guy, go and overtake him. However, Yovski knows that Simičić isn't pushing 110%. So if he goes in front, all he's going to do is give Jerne the slipstream, and then Jerne will be able to save loads of fuel for burst. So it is a bit of a weird game, and these drivers have driven these cars for long enough now to really sort of understand how they work. As we now see Timo. Oh, he's just touched the back. Just of that's Barretto, isn't it?
Yeah, that is Barretto in the Ramada. I think he might have gone off there.
That is just a bit of a misjudgment, I would say. Obviously, we've only seen it in the picture-in-the-picture, so a little bit hard to see. But it does look like he was potentially putting his car in an awkward place. However, Barretto would have naturally been coming over to the right-hand side of the track to get a better line into the Schumacher S. So, yeah, a little bit of a difficult one there, but the end result is that Timotei is now through for P9 for Pinson Drillers Esport.
I think Barretto is very lucky to get away with that. I thought he had gone fully off after he went off the track, but he seems to be going. Maybe he avoided the barriers, but here is Stefanko now getting very close as we head up the hill, taking these very fast right-handers, and that gap extending a little bit. So I think the different cars have a different strengths around the circuit, and that might be what's having an effect as well, because there may be BMW slightly quicker on some parts and the Corvette slightly quicker on others, which is what's causing the gap to keep changing.
Oh, Borja Landa in the top 8, 8:057. Fastest lap time. Obviously, he had to make that pit stop due to the damage. I'm just trying to see exactly what position he's in. He's down in 27th position. So really not good. 2.5 minutes, I should say, off the lead. So yeah, long way, but 8:05, certainly very good. About 3 seconds faster than the race leader. But yeah, 2.5 minutes is very difficult to get back just on lap time alone, as we see a replay here of Andonovski in the number 78. The real decision is Barretto coming over to the right, or is Andonovski putting his nose where he shouldn't? Bit of both, really, actually.
Yeah, that's a tough one to call.
Bit of both. Barretto did just come back over to the right, though. So, yeah, he didn't really help his chances there. But then Andonovski only really had the very front of his car. So I don't know. We'll leave that to the stewards to decide. But it's borderline racing incident with that one, I think.
Yeah, it's a hard one to judge, and yeah, it's going to be a fun one for the stewards to have a look at. Given that there wasn't a major impact, maybe a few seconds lost for Barretto, I think that it could probably be passed off as a racing incident. But one thing to mention is we were talking before the race about potentially having a penalty not being the worst thing, and also we talked about it near the start. And although it's not a penalty, Borja Milan has found himself relatively far down the order, but that has given him some clean track because he's 16 seconds off the guy in front, and that could be a contributing factor to that fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, that is always very helpful to have clean air, especially when you're trying to push. Obviously, in qualifying as well, it's actually a private qualifying session, so they are only on the track on their own, as if they're in their own session, basically, which obviously does help quite a lot. But then when you get to the race, you have to factor in things such as the dirty air, and there has been a small tweak to the dirty air as well during the BOP update for this round, which balance out the balance change in dirty air, basically. So it was a lot more rearward, so you would lose a lot more downforce on the rear, but it's been a little bit balanced out to try and make it a little bit easier to follow some cars, because it's not the easiest in these GT3s, especially as they're quite a lot more aero sensitive now than they were after one of the previous updates of the car. So that's also one reason that helps these drivers stay very close together, and you can stay fairly close, but you can't just sit right on the back of them, because you will eventually get into that dirty air, and then you will start scrubbing off the corners.
Yeah, I think it was a good change, because on a track like this, being able to follow closely is really important, especially with dirty air. It means the cars are, I think, a little less understeery, but yeah, on a track like this where you're following but not being able to make a move, being able to follow rather, is beneficial to the drivers, because it means they don't have to back off each lap, and that just reduces the overtaking, really.
Yeah, what I want to see at some point is Yuyovsky or Simicic just start to well, I mean, you can definitely see their pace has increased a lot since the start of the race, but they're definitely not pushing 110%. And I'd love to see that. Obviously, at the moment, they're saving a bit of fuel. So maybe after this first pit stop, at some point in the next couple of laps, then they will start pushing a little bit more, because there's nothing better, really, than a few GT3 cars battling it out at the absolute limit of performance around this track, because it is absolutely unforgiving. If you, just like you see with Borja Milan, you just touch your wheel or your tyre just in the grass, then all of a sudden you're around and you're in the barrier.
And this is going to be a replay of the McLaren here. Oh, that is a big off. He's lucky to keep his wing, but I fear that's some heavy suspension damage to that rear of the car.
Yeah, that is not a nice impact, because he's only about a third of the way around the track at that part of the lap as well. So he's going to, if he does have damage, he's going to have a long way back to get to that pit box as well, as we head onto the Döttinger again. Once again, they actually sort of spread out a bit coming through that final part of the lap. But you do see that Stefanko now is really gaining. I do wonder if he obviously turned down his fuel mix, because he's gaining so much. It looks like we're actually going to get an overtake here. Stefanko has decided this is time to get into that second place for Williams Esports BenQ. And he has got past there in the number 23. So will Yuyovsky try and come back? Because he knows he doesn't want to let Simicic get away now, because this could be an opportunity for Simicic to push a little bit on this next lap coming up, and potentially try and pull a gap if he has a bit of pace advantage over Stefanko. So this is an interesting one for Yuyovsky to decide what is he going to do now. Is he going to keep on with this strategy, or does he now need to start pushing?
Yeah, this could be a real triggering moment to these front three. With Stefanko in the middle, he might be just setting his sights immediately for that P1. Of course, Williams looking to do a lot better this time out than they did last time as they head through the Yokohama S. They are very close. It's all about the exit there. I think Stefanko's got a decent one. But as you're saying, this could be the start of quite an interesting battle with the order now shuffled up. Simoncic out on front, maybe not thinking his position is as stable before because he knew what kind of game Yayovsky was playing. He can't be quite as sure about Stefanko.
Yeah, especially regarding the championship. Obviously, Burst and RHG are 1 and 2 in the championship. But Williams, as you see, Cameron Sansano getting right at the back of the Flying Goat in the top right corner as well for 20th position. But he's a bit too far, or a bit too close, I should say, actually, to get a bit of a slipstream. But with Stefanko, I believe it was 6th place they finished back in Silverstone. So he's got a lot of points to gain in the championship as we now look at this 4-way battle there, almost 3 wide there, coming up, and the core car is getting a bit on the grass there as now Flying Goat is in the lead, and it seems like they both got past I believe the Caspian car there, which is probably struggling a little bit for top speed because of that damage, and now Flying Goat has got in front of all of these cars, and Sansano is going to have to try and work his way through coming onto the start of the GP track. But yeah, nice little 4-way battle here despite it being all the way down for 18th place.
Yeah, I have to say, as the Speedy Goat car goes into the pits, it's going a lot better for Jerome Priolo and that team than it has so far. Now, it's not just them, it's also Caspian Motorsport with Felipe Barreto, as well as it looks like the Trojan Donuts Automotive. As around the outside goes China Guerrero. Can he get that position? We saw him just a moment ago have a bit of contact. He is fighting Tom Kubik, the core team car. Can he get that position? It looks like they're still side by side on the exit. Down the inside it goes the McLaren 720S. Can he hold on to that position? It's going to be the outside line for the second part of the turn. That BMW really putting up a fight. They are still wheel to wheel here. I think the BMW is just about ahead of it as they head towards the hairpin. Could go for a late apex here. The Caspian Motorsport car. It looks like he might just be backing off for now. And this is Felipe Barreto, the P25 Ramada Motorsport car. And that is Jerome Priolo, the Flying Goat. Flying Goat, they didn't do brilliantly. I think they came second last of the finishers at Silverstone. Here, they were 19th before they came into the pits, but that is going to mark the start of the pit stop phase. But this is along the Dottingham Hoa. Tom Kubik getting past the Speedy Mite. You can see the Flying Goat and the Caspian Motorsport McLaren. So the Flying Goat's going to move to the outside. The Speedy Mite doesn't really have anywhere to go because that Mercedes has moved across. Tom Kubik getting past the other car as well. So it went well for the BMW. Now he was trying to get past the Speedy Mite Porsche. It becomes the outside line as they headed through Tiergarten. And you can see it backing off ever so slightly into that initial braking phase. And that is Tom Kubik there. So that was quite a dramatic run along the straight.
Yeah, and Caspian unfortunately just got freight trained by those 3 cars in the slipstream. He had absolutely no answer. And it's probably got a bit of top speed damage with that crash he had about half a lap ago, or half a lap before that as well. So not what you want to do as we turn our sights back to Stefanko, who is getting a bit closer, but he's not really challenging Simoncic just yet. But it does seem, just with the body language of these cars, that they are starting to maybe just push a little bit, although the lap times aren't anything crazy, really. I mean, obviously, in general, the lap times do go, they actually get a little bit slower over the stint as the tyre wear comes in. But yeah, I would say they've still got a bit left in the tank, but they are starting to sort of pull out a little bit. Before, Simoncic was holding them up, but it doesn't look like that anymore.
I have to say as well, I think of that initial phase, the drivers have been able to stop DNFing because we haven't had any DNFs since Hemmingson. And I think that poses quite a good outlook for the rest of the race because although we've seen a few crashes, we haven't seen any really big crashes that are race ending, and I think that's quite good. It means that we've got more drivers than there are point positions available, so that's going to be quite interesting to see the drivers squabble over those.
And the person who is now in 31st and the first person to not get points is Felipe Barreto. He's still in the pit lane and he's just sitting there, so he must have quite a bit of damage. So that moment with Andonovski, I believe he, I mean, I don't remember seeing it, but I believe he would have gone into the barrier. So he possibly has some damage from that, which is a bit interesting because he's still sitting there. He's been there for quite a while. The car next to him I believe it was the Flying Goat. He's already well gone by this point. So don't know what Barretto is doing as we see a replay here. Or was this another accident afterwards coming through her act? He's gone wide and he's just going to hit the outside there. So he's going to have a bit of suspension damage from that, definitely. And he does seem to collect it fairly well, and he is now leaving the pit lane, but he has lost minutes, multiple minutes there in the pit lane, and he has stayed in that car. Obviously, we do have driver swaps, and a number of these drivers or these teams will potentially have 3 drivers, but I expect because there is a tiny second penalty when you do your pit stop to do a driver change, so it takes a little bit longer. So most of the drivers or most of the teams will only be trying to use 2 drivers to limit the amount of driver swaps that they are doing. So I assume we're going to see a double stint for a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, and Barretto there, so he may have hit the barrier with his incident earlier in the lap, but that barrier, that hit we saw there, that was quite bad. And I think Caspian as well, with their incident, they'll be coming into the pits. They might have decided that even though they have damage, they may as well leave it to the pit window because they're only about 15 minutes off. We have 12 minutes remaining of the hour. So we'll see how all that strategy plays out, because strategy is going to play a monumental role in the outcome of this race, because these 3, though they're battling for on-track position, you can see Borja Milan in the top there going around the outside as he takes that position. Good move there. As I was saying, these top 3, although they're battling for position on track, whether that even has an effect on the end of the race, it's all down to when the leader comes across the line, really.
Yeah, so I've been doing some maths. It looks like we're going to have 22 laps, which means we are coming on to start lap 7. So lap 7 is going to be quite an important one, because if someone pits after 7 laps, so at the end of the next lap, then they will then only do 21 laps with 3 stints, which means they will have to do a splash and dash for an extra lap of fuel. So I think that is why these cars at the front have been maybe saving a little bit of fuel with the slipstream or other factors, because they want to get at least one of their stints a bit longer. As we see Stefanko coming already. Interesting. Okay, so Stefanko's coming after only 6 laps. That means he might have a slam dunk third pit stop, basically 3-stop strategy. So that is an interesting one, considering how much Yujovski and Simičić were saving. Simičić and Yujovski might do an extra 2 laps to go and do an 8-lap stint, which is what they need to make sure they don't have a splash and dash, whereas Stefanko is already pitting now. This is very interesting, but he will potentially get an undercut with this.
Yeah, he might be playing it safe, but also taking a risk. Playing it safe because he's solidifying that 3-stop strategy, but also taking a risk because he might be presuming that the other guys have to do 3 stops as well. And it's all down to whether they do or not. But here we go. The Trojan Donuts Automotive Porsche right behind Scuderia Muscala, driven by the Muscala brothers. We've got Go Team just behind as well. So we've got a 3-way battle here for P20. So there are battles up and down the grid. And you can see through the very bumpy section of track there, we've got other drivers going into the pits. That's Muscala ATP Auto Tyler. And as we saw earlier, the Williams Esports Ben Q car in the pits. They've been in for 1 minute 10 so far. Probably not as long as we saw Barretto in the pits, or I don't think they'll be hoping to do that. But Cameron Sansano, you can see in the top left, top right, even going to the left of Daniel Silva in the Pro Sim Tech car along Dottinger Her. So it's all beginning to unfold here. We've got action all over the place, and you can see Trojan Donut Automotive, that P21 car driven by Gasper Grabenk. He's trying to find somewhere through, although he may have gone slightly wide. Now we have the Speedy Mike car with Pro Sim Tech just getting overtaken there. And you got Core Team a little bit behind, but here is the Trojan Donut Automotive car that we were looking at a minute ago. Gasper Grabenk against Andre Muscala. He's got Luigi Russo behind him. He's going to move to the outside of the Muscala car. We've got the Go Team moving to the outside of him as they touch along the Dottinger Her. That could be very risky as they head towards Tiergarten. Too wide. We'll have to see how hard the Porsche cuts in for that left-hand kink. But that was very close. And it looks like we've got the BMW. He's managed to go from 3rd in that pack to 1st of their pack, from 22nd to 20th. So it's all worked out pretty well for the Go Team Racing car, and I think he's going to be happy with that. Andre Muscala having dropped from 20th to 22nd.
Yeah, and that is what can happen very easily if you have that slipstream. As we mentioned, it is so long that the car in front just gets to a bit of a drag barrier, but the Porsche is now coming right back for Trojan Donut into turn number 1. He's going to have to go around the outside on the brakes. He's broken very late, but can he do it, or is the BMW going to keep the position? The BMW just about can for Go Team Racing, and the Swedish team keeps that 16th position. So that was a double overtake there, and that's what can happen if you time that slipstream to perfection, as he did on that lap. And an interesting fact is there's a few other drivers in, and it is a mixture of chassis as well, so it isn't necessarily a fuel mileage issue with one of the cars. But interestingly, the two guys from the top that pit were both in a BMW for Pescara and Williams, so maybe the BMW is slightly less, or maybe this is just a bit of a strategic element. However, the difference being Pescara did change driver. Mashuli is in there for this middle stint, whereas Stefanko has stayed in the Williams car.
Yeah, and we saw last time that there was a bit of debate as to whether the driver swap adds a couple of seconds to the overall pit stop time, but they decided if there was, they'd leave it in because it does add an interesting element to strategy, which it certainly does. But this is Luigi Russo in the other Go Team BMW. He's in the Go Team BMW, sorry. He's going to be looking to hold off Gasper Grabenk in that Trojan Donut automotive car. That car driven by another Gasper Zupan. But now they are heading towards the first part of the Nordschleife, which is always, as we said earlier, it's a really interesting part. It's very fun to watch. It's quite easy to lock up into that very first turn though. That's always a little bit of a risk. But then they head on towards the Hatzenbach, named so because it runs alongside a small stream that bears the same name. So that's always, it's quite an interesting thing, and that just shows the vastness of the track. The fact that only a little bit of it runs alongside a stream. But then they head through Hocheichen onto the Kudelbacher Hohe, which is just through here now. So it's downhill, which means they can get a lot of acceleration. Although Luigi Russo, onto the grass goes Gasper Grabenk, keeping it out of the barrier. But you can see it down the hill as P18 is out of the race. Which car is that?
It's Daniel Silva, so it's the Pro Simtech car that we just saw battling with Speedy Mite. He has just left the race. I didn't see why, so there may have been a disconnection, but it's really unfortunate for him because he was having a decent little battle there, but he's now dropping all the way down and he won't be able to get back those positions. And I'm being told it was just a disconnection, so unfortunately he had a issue with the connection to the server and his car has dropped out, which is really not the best for them, unfortunately, because he is now sat in the garage. And even if he rejoins, he will lose at least 2 laps just by doing that, with the time that it takes to do that. So yeah, not the best for them because they are not going to be getting any points today.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate, and that's the one of the few things that can happen in esports that doesn't happen in real life. Hopefully we won't see too much of that. As you can see, Yelowski, he's still pushing quite hard. He was riding the curb all along there. However, that gap now over a second to Simoncic. So I think that Yelowski and Simoncic may be both deciding to try and save some fuel. As you can see, they're still using the full length of the track as we head past the, as some sort call it, the YouTube corner, and onto the latter part of the Nordschleife. You can see really off the track there, Yayovsky. So maybe these guys struggling a little bit. They'll probably be coming into the pits either probably at the end of this lap. But yeah, strategy-wise, any point could make a difference.
Yeah, this is the interesting lap, as this is that magical lap number 7. Because if Simoncic and Yuyovsky go for another lap, then that is obviously 2 extra laps that they've gone. And considering that Stefanko only did 6 laps, if these guys do 8, then that is obviously effectively a 3rd extra again that they have done. So that percentagely is a huge amount extra that they've gone. Stefanko, I assume, will be getting a bit of an undercut, but we won't be able to see exactly his lap time until the next lap. But yeah, this could be quite an interesting moment if Simoncic and Yovsky stay out, because with them fuel saving, I do expect that they're going to stay out for an 8th lap, and this could be a very interesting moment in the strategic points for this race, because Stefanko, he is 100% going to do a 3-stop now, because there's no way he's going to be able to save 2 laps of fuel when you've seen what these guys have done to save a lap of fuel. So yeah, he's definitely going to be on that 3-stop, which could really hinder them as we get towards the latter parts of this race. His only real hope is that he has enough pace to still keep in that 3rd place, which I assume he will, as we get, although Simoncic comes in as well as Yossi, so they couldn't save that extra lap. This is very, very interesting. They couldn't save that extra lap, which means at some other point they're going to have to save that extra lap of fuel, unless they just think it's simply not possible.
One thing to note, we just saw Andre Muscala off, so Scooter Muscala maybe having a little bit of maybe struggling a little bit. Of course, this is a 3-hour race, but some of these drivers, they're going to be driving for 2 hours and near enough anyway, and that concentration is going to be a huge part, especially on such a long circuit. This is going to be Nicholas Porterbink. Oh, that is a big double front ender getting the rear in as well, and this is Andre Muscala. He has not come along at the best side. In fact, no, he's had a spin, but in a completely different fashion. He's avoided contact with anything, luckily for him. And that is interesting for them to independently have incidents, but at the exact same point of the track.
Okay, so interesting fact, Juraj Simoncic is back out. Where is everyone else? They are still in the pit lane. So he has saved a lot of time, because no one has left the pit lane yet, apart from Stefanko's coming along now. Is Stefanko going to get the undercut on Yuyovsky? Yes, he has easily, but these guys are still there. So how has Simoncic saved that much time? Maybe he didn't change tyres, because I don't see how else he's gained this much time. I mean, he's literally half the GP track ahead of everyone else.
That's a strategy. If he's avoided changing tyres, maybe. Well, the thing is, tyres are an interesting one around this track, because it all depends on how you drive the Nordschleife, especially as Mathieu Decaux does get a penalty. But we have Gasper Grabenk now with Borja Milan. Borja Milan did have the fastest lap. I'm not sure if he still holds it. He might possibly. Not entirely sure, but now in P17, looking to take P16 of Gasper Grabenk. I think the Porsche will be coming into the pits this lap, because as far as I know, they haven't. But there goes Borja Milan in the BMW, the 2 German automotive manufacturers against each other, and it looks like the BMW is going to come out ahead as they head through Tiergarten now into the final set of curves at the end of the lap. That is interesting in terms of strategy for Simoncic, and you can see it now as they head along the straight. No, they both stay out, so I think they must have both done their pits already though, but we only have 2 hours left.
These burst guys, man, they just love a bit of strategy, don't they? So we've got to now try and work out what they're doing, because they have now got a huge lead. So maybe now that they've got the huge lead, this is the stint where he's going to save the fuel to basically give up that time that he's gained by doing this, potentially. But Stefanko has undercut Yuyovsky very comfortably. So this is such a weird one now, as we see Muscala and Kubik coming into Tiergarten, and Muscala always going to go off again. This time he does hit the barrier, and I can see that his brother Christian Muscala is sitting there. So I do expect he's going to come in to do a driver swap on this lap. Yeah, he just pulls in there. But yeah, very interesting things to do on the strategy. Gonna have to work it out, but yeah, by our calculations, they are going to have to do a splash and dash if they don't save a lap of fuel. So very interesting indeed. As we see now, Sansano still battling here with Kubik, and I believe actually Sansano just came out of the pit lane, so they are now battling for this on-track position. But Kubik obviously is already up to speed on this stint.
Yeah, and The strategy, as we keep saying, it's going to have a huge impact. The burst strategy is an alternate strategy to everyone else. So the top three, as far as I can see, they've all gone for different strategies. Simic, he has gone for no tyres, it looks like, and Stefanko decided to pit much earlier. So this is going to be Cameron Sansano. This is where he left the pit lane, and you're going to see on the outside of him it goes a BMW. You can see sending it around the outside there. It does become a very narrow line, but you can see why we had that little battle into the first chicane. But this is Eros Mashuli for the Pescara ATP Auto Tyler, with Joachim Stesnes in the Nita Velux McLaren 720S behind him. That gap, half a second, it looks like,
And
as they carry on.
And I was just going to say, these two drivers are fresh into the car. So they've just got into the car at the previous pit stop. So they need to get up to speed as quickly as possible, because as you can see, there's a big battle for 7th position, which is obviously some decent points. So this is quite important for those teams, but they've got to just jump in and get on pace straight away. But I actually believe that might be in a position in the pit stops for the Pescara car. I believe they might be in the other way around, just before the pit stops. So a little bit of an undercut there. Maybe always as Stensis goes off in the background, but he manages to hold that nicely. We've seen many a driver over the years crash there, but he managed to keep that, and that's not what you want to do when you're battling a car just ahead. So maybe Mashuli now is going to have a little bit of free play, as we see a replay of James Zuber, who has just taken over from Andonovski on the back of the Go Team Racing BMW. It's going to go on the outside, coming up to a Schraden cross. This is not a place where you want to go on the outside, but does he make it work, or is there going to be a bit of contact? No, he makes it work. Really, really good move there by James Zuber, as we got the other Wanako car there coming up in the background, which we've jumped onto now. So Russo still in that car. James Zuber getting past him. Really good move there from the driller's car.
Yeah, definitely, and that's what Zuber's going to have to do, having just replaced Andonovski. He's going to be looking to just try and catch up as soon as possible. I mean, we're talking about new drivers. One of them did go off. However, he managed to avoid the barriers and he's carried on going. Now we've got Luigi Russo and Borja Milan. Milan, he's on a push. He's now in 12th, because we saw him quite far down the order earlier. That Wanako car, though, really on a comeback attack. He is behind a rival BMW here. That gap, 0.6 of a second. And you can see a Corvette just ahead of them. The Pinson Driller's car, even, of Zuber.
So Stefanko is 20, give or take, 24 seconds, 23 seconds behind Simoncic. And I would assume he's already gained a couple of those over the first lap out of the pits. So yeah, this is a really interesting one. So Simoncic has given him this lead. Obviously, this is a one-time deal. They won't be able to gain this time again, because I really doubt. Always De Krop has blown his engine. De Krop is out of this race. So that has given everyone behind him a position. Now Borja Milan goes around the outside, which will give him the inside for the Mukova. So that is a really good move there. Russo losing another position on this lap, although Milan just goes off a little bit there. But we've also lost a crop on this lap as well, so plenty of things happening. That puts Mashuli up into 6th place after being down in 8th or 9th earlier. So Pescara gaining a lot there. So yeah, quite a few things happening just there. But how has the crop blown his engine already after only an hour? These cars can obviously do, 24-hour races. So he's obviously pushing the limits a little bit too hard with that engine.
Yeah, that is a big shame for the Bentley guys. This is Borja Milan, though, and I think this is his move. And you can see you getting very close. Quite a sneaky move around the outside, actually. I'm surprised he's managed to make that stick, because I think we saw, I can't remember who it was, but they were trying to get past the Ramada earlier, and they failed, although he has touched the barrier there, though. So you can see how the narrowness of the track and the possible lines do have an effect there when making the move. There's only a light bump, though, so I don't think he would have sustained any substantial damage from that as they head through. I think this is Wittmann, and I believe with that part of the track that it's named because it was very, very bouncy when they initially made it, so they had to pay over it again because the cars were just literally floating up and down because of its surface.
Yeah, fortunately, these cars actually generally have a lot, even GT3s now, they have so much downforce, they can actually keep the car on the track. But if you look at videos of like old F1 cars come around here, I believe it was something like 10 to 15 times per lap they were getting all 4 wheels off the track, which is just absolutely crazy. As Stefanko, they're doing an 8:03, so he's getting into qualifying lap territory. He's really pushing to try and catch Simoncic, as we now see. A bit of a replay here. This is De Crop on the downshifts. Yeah, on the downshifts, just a little bit too aggressive, blew the engine of that Bentley, and yeah, that is gone. That engine is gone, so they will be getting nil points in this race, and unfortunately, De Crop is a little bit of a DNF magnet, I'm sad to say, because he's a very, very fast driver, as you can see with the position that he was in, so it's a very disappointing time where you see that one move entry have a DNF, but unfortunately, yeah, just another one here today as Daniel Silva did rejoin the race, but he's now left once again.
That is a big shame for him. Those connection issues plaguing drivers, they are very frustrating because they can ruin a race through no fault of your own, and that is probably the one frustration with sim racing. However, we can see it now at the top what the overall picture is looking like. We've got Simoncic still in the lead, followed by Stefanko and Ioska. We've got Bok, but he's nearly a minute behind, but you can also see there with Simoncic even, he's 20 seconds clear of second place. Then we've got Michel, Mashuli, Stesnos and Veit. They're all within a reasonable range of the leader. Then Juba in that Pinson Drillers car, followed by Borja Milan, Luigi Russo and Gasper Grabenk in that Trojan Donut Automotive. But on screen you can also see Mashuli and Stesnos fighting for position. Then we've got Cirque 13th, 14th is Ollie McGowan, 15th is Capusta and 16th is Crespi. And you can see already with just an hour and 10 minutes gone, these gaps are quite big. We've got Beta Bello in 17th, Cameron Sansano in 18th, Kubik in 19th and Maras in 20th. But over the course of an hour, these gaps, look at that, 220 seconds for Grau, Lorito not far behind, then Provost and Pleva. You can see though, there are battles around the track such as that between those two drivers there. Then we've got Gerard Delioglu in 25th, Muscala in 26th, Prodan in 27th and 28th is Barreto. And these are the DNFs so far. De Croo, Poor Badnik, Silva and Hemmingson with the other Pinson Drillers car, then Whitehouse, Van Eyl and Costa.
Yeah, it's 7 DNFs already. I'd say that's probably about right for obviously the type of track. I believe we only had, it was either 2 or 3 in Silverstone, so to get a little bit more here is a little bit more expected, we should say, as we see Beto Bello there in the pit lane. But we're now seeing Lorito coming on the back of Grau now onto this front straight, although we're not, because Lorito is coming in. I do wonder if this is for a penalty, because I did see one pop up, and that car's already had a couple of penalties this race for Blackbirds. So yeah, not the race that they would have wanted to do, obviously coming to the Nordschleife, but there will be another race this year as we do head to the 3 Hours of Imola just before Christmas.
Yeah, we've got a few races to go. Yeah, this is just the second round, but it's also interesting to see whether the races last time out were flukes or not. Right now, for the leaders, it's not looking like a fluke. It looks like they are really some strong set of drivers. You can see Williams, they're putting up a much better show this time than last time. I think they're going to be happy with where they are. Obviously, they're going to continue fighting for that first place, but with the strategies all twisted around, really, it could be anyone's race by the time we cross the checkered flag in an hour and 50 minutes to potentially even 2 hours time, depending on what point of the lap the timer goes to 0, and then where the leader comes across it, because it could be anywhere from 10 seconds to 8 minutes, just depending on when that timer goes to 0. As you can see, off the track goes Eros Mashuli. He's spun, he's into the, oh, that is a big crash. He's lost his rear wing, and that into the tyre wall as well. Stesnes is flashing to get past. You can see without that wing, Mashuli having a lot of oversteer to deal with. He's going to have to let Stesnes through. There's no point even trying to pass him. That is really, really unfortunate for the driver who was in 6th position, putting up an absolutely fantastic show. And he's off again. You can see that loss of the wing, that damage to suspension, really making it hard. And he's going to have to limp a long way to get back. Possibly even bringing out yellows. I know that if they are in a position where there's not much point trying to take it back, the race director might encourage them to just not take it, to try and avoid the risk of other drivers not making it to the end. I know that's one of the reasons why a couple of the cars decided not to race this evening, because they feared that they didn't want to ruin other people's races.
Yes, that type of track, always we see him go off once again. Not what he would have wanted to be doing. He was there in 6th place, looking really good. They got 8th place last time out, so this would have been this would have been quite a good result for them, really, to get up into 6th place. But what that has allowed is a census to make it a 5-6 for the 2 Nota Velux cars, which is pretty good considering they struggled quite a lot back in Silverstone. They only got 10th with one of their cars and a DNF with another. So yeah, not the start to the season that they wanted, but they've worked their way up into 5th and 6th thanks to other cars such as Eros really struggling, and he's now losing another couple of places. So Borja Milan has already worked his way up into 9th place and getting on the back of James Zuber, and he might actually be trying to have a bit of a look into the mud curve as he made an overtake a little bit earlier, but he's going to have to once again sit behind. But this is a really good comeback from Borja Milan, and he's under 2 minutes off the lead now.
Yeah, we've seen him just work his way up. He's been cutting through drivers. You can see the BMW he passed last time. Zuber was a fair way down the road when he made that move. Now looking to take 8th position. And this is the onboard from that Pinsim Driller's car. And you can see Borja Milan really making sure he's getting in those mirrors, putting that quite imposing BMW nose very close to the rear of the Callaway Corvette. But Borja Milan doing a fantastic job to just work his way slowly but surely up the order. Although that was slightly concerning for him. You can see a little bit squirrely along there past Hoa Acht and back downhill now.
So Eros is only getting towards the sort of the last third of the Nordschleife, but then he's still obviously got to go all the way down the Duttinger Höhe as well. Really going to be struggling for him. Yeah, I'm a little bit sad for that Pescara car, because they were doing a pretty good job. But someone who is now doing a good job is Milan, as they are coming through the field really well. And it's interesting actually how they are so close, because at one point they were at 2.5 minutes off the lead. I remember saying, oh, you're never going to get that back, but they've already gained about 30 seconds of that, and that was with Simičić not taking tyres as well, so they would be even closer if Simičić did take tyres, as we're seeing that yellow flag in sector 2 still continue, as actually is for someone else. We got the Trojan Donut car having a little bit of an issue there, potentially a spin, and now Eros is all over the back of him, so a couple of cars having issues here. And as we expected, there's a few more issues going on than we saw in Silverstone.
I don't think that people expected Eros to be making an overtake on this lap, but we've got Riddick sick. So yeah, that Trojan Donut P12 damaged as well. You can see he's all over the shop there. Riddick sick is going to take that 12th position, and potential suspension damage because he doesn't seem to be going too quick. Because Ollie McGowan as well is speeding by racing. This has become a bit of an M25 traffic jam as Mashugli is re-overtaken by Gasper Gerbenk. Yeah, look at this. Ollie McGowan, he's all over the rear of the Porsche. Maybe the Porsche's got it together again. It doesn't look like it. I think that is damaged somewhere. I'd like to see a replay of the incident that led to that, because we only really caught the end of it as we went through the Kindness Carousel. But this is Borja Milan, though, going for 8th position along the Dottinger Höhe, down through Tiergarten, and that is a good move there. And that's going to be 8th position. Borja Milan absolutely putting in an excellent shift and setting the pace for his teammate Nico Barkley for when he gets in the car.
One car we haven't mentioned at all so far this race is the car just ahead of him, although he's now coming in because he is obviously off offset with where he is with his pit stops because he had to make that pit stop so early into the first stint. But the car just ahead of him, or who is now ahead of Zuber, is Mark Veit for Scuderia Bazelia. We haven't mentioned them all day, but they're sitting there in a nice P7, which would be a nice few points if they could get there. They only got P11 last time out in Silverstone, so this would be a nice improvement from them. And ironically, they are car number 7 as well, so this would be a good little match-up for them if they can hold on to this. However, Zuber is only 10 seconds behind and is, as we've seen, doing pretty decent himself. However, Mark Veit's lap times aren't overly good, so we might actually see Zuber get towards him on this lap. But even then, P7 is still a pretty good job, a pretty good effort from those Bazelia guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Mashuli has finally made it to the pits now, but that must have been a very frustrating half a lap. But here comes Andre Crespi on Cameron Sansano along the main straight in that Absolute Motorsport Callaway Corvette. It's going to be the inside line. If the Speedy Mike can get it, hold on to it rather, it will be the inside line for him for the second part of the chicane. You can see going for a later apex goes Crespi, and it looks like the exit might just be enough, as onto the next straight they go out of the Yokohama S, just about holding onto that position. Speedy Mike Racing having another sniff of the inside line, not quite able to get that position as they head through the Ford Corfa now. But on the exit, it's got a bit wide, goes Andrea Crespi as they head towards the hairpin now, the Dunlop Corfa. It looks like Cameron Sansano might just hold on to this position. If he does it, that was some fantastic racing.
And that's always proof that even once you get overtaken, you can always come back straight away, but you have to do it generally very quickly. Otherwise, the car ahead gains that time. So speeding back up into P11, but it's not over because now Crespi is coming around the outside. This is going to be a very difficult move, actually, as we come out towards the back straight of the GP track. And this is sort of a little bit of a difficult place to follow through these faster corners. However, he's actually had a pretty decent exit, and the Porsche isn't really the best with the BRP, but I'm sure that battle will go on as we now see Prodan get towards the back of Christian Muscala. So the second Muscala brother is now into that car, and Volante pull out as well. There's a bit of lag there actually from the car just ahead of them, as he has got past very easily in that Aston Martin. And you can just see the potential of that slipstream if you get it absolutely right, which just shows you how much Yoski was saving in the early parts of this race, because he could have been 5-10 car lengths ahead, but instead he was sitting behind. As we now got Moutinho in the other Pro Sim Tech. There are 2 of those cars of that team, and now Volante are getting very close to them indeed as they head back out onto the GP track with 1 hour and 40 minutes remaining in this race.
Well, one thing to mention was that Pro Sim Tech car ahead in P23. They had 2 drive-throughs to serve coming into this race. So it's been P23 after all of that. It's not too bad. They're going to be looking to get to that checkered flag. And yeah, I think P23 is not too bad considering they've had to serve 2 drive-throughs off the start. But this is Gasper Grabank. I think this was a while ago, but this is his incident that caused him to lose a lot of time. You can see it's looking fine. But as he goes uphill through famously YouTube corner, yeah, he's going to ride the curb. That's going to strike the underside of his car, and he's going to hit the barrier quite hard. His nose twice. That is not what you want to see. You can see him squaring it back onto the track, and Eros Mashuli, also not the luckiest driver on that lap. He's come up behind him, and you can see, yeah, very unstable on that Traeger Donuts automotive car.
So we jump back onto this battle between Volante and Scuderia Muscala. It seems like Volante have got that one pretty nicely for now, though they will be trying to obviously get ahead of Pro Sim Tech as well. Just had a quick look. So Borja Milan has given that car to Nico Barkley, but if you remember, Nico Barkley was the one who had those connection issues last time. He's obviously from Peru, so he's quite far away from a number of these drivers, and obviously therefore the server as well, which is obviously why he can have a couple of connection issues. So hopefully he gets towards the end of this stint that he is going to be doing. Don't know if he's going to go to the end or not. We'll have to see. But hopefully he can at least get a clean stint in. But yeah, we'll see how that goes, because that was a really unfortunate moment last race where they were looking really good to get a top result. And unfortunately, as we saw with Daniel Silva, you just get a bit of a disconnection.
Yeah, we'll see what Nico Barkley can do, but the bar has been set very high by his teammate Mohamed Milan. If they can carry that momentum through, though, that Monaco car is looking to have quite a strong finish after such a turbulent start to the race. And I think they'll be happy with probably the position they're currently in, but they're obviously going to be looking to gain more as here we go through the hairpin kind of area there with the Tom Kapusta in the Revo Satellite Racing. He's trying to hold off Georgi Nadev in the Go Team BMW. These guys are quite close, and you can see as we go through the walled off section of track to try and stop the sound carrying. And oh, look at that, a bit of snap overs here. That's going to cost Nadev on the exit. Now, the interesting thing is the reason that the Nordschleife, the Nürburgring was built was because the German car manufacturers complained that they didn't have a proper place to test their cars. So they went to Kaiser Wilhelm and asked if they could have a racetrack. And obviously the original plans got halted. But here we go with Tom Kubik on Nico Barkley on Tom Kubik. Those two BMWs fighting each other very close around the outside. Can Nico Barkley carry on his teammates' momentum? And this is always a bit of a risky pass of the track because they're going so fast, but he has got that position and he's kept it on track as well. But as I was saying, they built the track so that the German manufacturers could actually have a proper place to test their cars, and it's become one of the most famous places since then for testing cars.
Yeah, and if I remember rightly, the irony is on the very first race, the German manufacturer didn't win. I believe it might have been Alfa Romeo who won the very first race here, which is quite ironic. But obviously, over the years, there have been many victories in the races for the German manufacturers. And as we can see, it's a BMW M6 potentially going to be winning this race if one of Stefanko or Yuyovsky can get, Yuyovsky's in the Corvette, so it's only down to Stefanko actually to get past Simoncic. And so far, he is doing a pretty good job of catching, and he's going up a couple of seconds a lap quicker, but a couple of seconds a lap potentially not going to be enough. You have to try a little bit harder than that with the laps that they've got left, but we'll have to see when they get to that final pit stop. We've now got Plever getting on the back of Grau. We've seen a number of drivers actually make a move here into the McCurver. There's a little bit more of an overtaking opportunity than I thought before this race, but that obviously is just down to the way the slipstream works with these cars. And it is obviously looking pretty good, but Plever is going to have to sit behind just a little bit longer in that position.
Indeed. Now this is going to be a replay of Ferran Grau. This braking zone here, so difficult, and you're seeing the effects of that. He's been lucky to avoid the barriers, but that is going to cost him a lot of time because it's so narrow trying to turn yourself around, and that's what cost him, or that's why in fact he's defending very hard. First from Alice Claver, but also from Gasper Grabank as well. That Porsche fixed up is back in the battle for things. But yeah, that turn there, you're turning and braking heavily as you go downhill. It's like a triple negative, and you saw that it didn't work out for Grau. He's managed to get it going again, managed to avoid contact with the barriers, maybe a bit of overheated tyres, but he's going now, and he's in 18th, trying to hold it, and he's got quite the job cut out for him as a result of it.
And this part of the track is so difficult. Coming down the hill towards Brunchen, such a difficult part of the track to stay close as well, and or even make an overtake. However, someone who might be making an overtake now is James Zuber, who is caught up to Mark Veit for that 7th place. So he was 10 seconds behind, and he's caught that within 1 lap because it was about a lap ago as they came through this part of the GP track. We were talking about it. So that says that James Zuber was 10 seconds a lap quicker. And I just checked, yeah, he was. He did an 8:11, and Veit did an 8:21. So now Zuber really has the pace advantage, and I'm sure will be going past the number 7 car very, very quickly indeed for the number 78. But he's got to try and find the position to do it. Neil said it's not the easiest place to overtake, ironically, despite the length of the track, but that could potentially be an option as you get towards this very fast chicane to end the GP track. He's going to be alongside far enough? No, not quite. So he's going to have to wait a little bit to get out onto the Nordschleife, unless he wants to send it down the inside of the final corner before we head out onto Nordschleife. But he hasn't got past, so he might have to sit there for a little bit. And he's got to make sure that, he's going, there's a bit of contact there, but I think just to take him into the braking zone. But he's got to be very careful because he does have a lot of pace advantage, 10 seconds a lap, but he doesn't want to then run into the back of him even though I think he just did, and caused an accident. He just needs to wait until the perfect opportunity. There's no point taking heavy risk when you know you're that much quicker than someone.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think Nico Barkley had an incident somewhere around the track because he lost a couple of positions there. I saw him dropping down the order a little bit, but now we have Gasper Grabenk. He's gotten past Grau, as has Plaver. He's looking to get past Plaver as well himself as they head towards Tiergarten now. And onto the grass a little bit goes Grau, but Grabenk into the lead of these three drivers there. That's Plaver. He's looking behind him now. That was quite interesting along the Dottinger Hoa. And Grabenk has come out on top, so you can see when it's three along there as into the pits goes Plaver, but when it's three along the Dottinger Hoa, the rear driver sometimes, I think we've seen more often than not, is coming out on top. So that's a drive, oh no, that's Prickle, sorry. He's going to come out just behind Grau. So this is a battle far from over, even if there has been a substitution of one driver for another.
Yeah, it's actually just the two core cars doing pit stops at a similar time, which is quite interesting because we're an hour and a half into the race, which is a bit of a weird time to see a pit stop in a GT3 car. Well, we see there Muscala, I believe, just got overtaken looking at the overspeed there by Palmgarten. So they're now catching up just about a second and a half to Moutinho ahead of them as well. But see, this is a little bit further down, so not the places that they would have necessarily wanted to do, but certainly where they are at the moment as they come out onto the GP track to start lap 11 of the race. So despite going for an hour and a half, we've only completed 10 laps so far. Such is the length of the track. And Gianni Simchich is already actually halfway around that lap as well. So still doing a good job out in the lead.
Yeah, judging by the time, it looks like your prediction of 22 laps could be correct. With just over an hour and a half to go and 11 laps done. Yeah, I think could see 22. Barkley having pedal issues. So that explains why we'll be getting a replay of that in a second, but I did see him dropping down the order a bit. That's really unfortunate for him because that car was carrying so much momentum. Now, this is going to be what happened for Barkley and going along the Dottinger Hoa now. And yeah, it's rocketing along at a fair pace. The Dottinger Hoa named after the town that is situated close to this track.
Slowing down here,
but yeah, you can see him as he goes up the hill. He's losing a lot of speed past the Torstenfahrten entrance, and you can see, yeah, he's a lot slower than the other cars. So maybe his pedals fell out of calibration, I'm thinking, as a potential, because we saw that recently as he, yeah, you can see that's so frustrating along such a long straight to be losing so many positions. In the Monaco car though, in 15th still, so I think he's managed to get the issue sorted and carry on going, but that is very unfortunate for Nico Barkley and also his teammate Jorge Milan.
Yeah, it's a weird one, that, because he is still going again, so wherever the issue was, he obviously sorted it out, but a straight is sort of the worst place that can happen because the top speed is so much higher than what your normal average speed is on a lap. If you slow down, then you're losing sort of more time effectively than if that happened maybe through some corners. He could sort of coast through and potentially lose a little bit less. But yeah, they've dropped down now to 15th place. So we'll have to see how this one works out for them. But it hasn't really been the season opening that they would have wanted. And with there being only 8 races in the calendar, at the end of this race, we will already be a quarter of the way through the season. So it's one of those seasons where you have to make sure you're still getting your results, still making sure you're getting those points. And unfortunately, first 2 races haven't gone that well for Monaco.
No, that is very unfortunate for them because it's the things that are out of your hands that are the most frustrating, because if it's a spin or a crash or something, you can at least have something to blame. But when it's something like software related, it's just frustrating because you don't have control over it. But here is Felipe Barreto in that Ramada car against Christian Muscala. So obviously the same driver in the Bentley, but a new driver from their last battle in the Muscala car. And having a look down the inside goes Felipe Barreto. That was quite risky as they head through Adenauer Forst. Now, can the Ramada car get through? braking again. That is such a technical part of the track, and you can see ahead there's a little battle unfolding. Just a third of a second, less than a third of a second. This could be really quite interesting. The dirty air might have a bit of effect here because that's a slight kink in the track, but you have to carry a fair amount of speed through it. And you can see a bit of time dropping back. Now goes the Armada car, but it does look good. That's one of my favorite looking cars on the grid, I have to say.
Yeah, it certainly does. And the Bentley that they're using is the 2021, so it's the updated version. Obviously, de Crop that we saw earlier before he blew his engine, he is in the older spec car. And what they did with the this Bentley revised version, it just looks so good. They added these sort of more slightly curvy shape. It was a little bit boxy before, and yeah, that Bentley is looking really good, along with the obviously the good livery to go with that. But unfortunately, 25th position is not where they wanted to be, but they obviously had that really long pit stop earlier as well. I'm still not quite sure as to why that was. It must just be the damage repairs, but it was a really, really long pit stop compared to some other people that we've seen making damage repairs as well. So a bit unfortunate, but that's obviously just how it goes sometimes. So hopefully they can get a few more points here, trying to get past Christian Muscala.
Yeah, definitely. And they had that one lap where they were plagued with gremlins because they had that incident in the Grand Prix part and then in the Nordschleife. However, they're going to try and strike back because here comes Barretto through this very fast section of that track. That BMW looking very imposing behind Christian Muscala. He's going to move to the left-hand side as they go through the fast section. He's absolutely rocketed past there, and he's going to take 24th position. 23rd, though, is the Pro Simtech, the remaining Pro Simtech. And that's Muscala around. So has there been an effect of dirty air? Or that's interesting. He's going to get going quite quickly, although he is right in the middle of a very fast section of track. I think he's clear behind. Yes, he is. He's got a decent gap to Yuri Vizluza in the core team, but that is really unfortunate for Christian Muscala and also his brother Andrei Muscala in that Scuderia Muscala.
What?
Yeah.
Some people are already coming into the pit lane at the end of lap 11. So they haven't even done 6 laps on this next stint. They've only done 5. That is very weird.
It could be tyre related. We'll have to keep an eye on the length of the pit stops because maybe those that didn't change tyres are beginning to regret that decision. I'm not sure, actually. It is interesting.
That is certainly an interesting one as David Young gets in the number 7 instead of Mark Veit. Zuber stays in. Or it could just be, as we said, it looks like it's going to be a 22-lap race. So they've done 11 laps, so that's half of the race. As Barretto there gets past Moutinho, who seems to be going a bit slowly. So maybe they're just doing 2 11-lap double stint kind of things. We'll have to see how that one works out. And yeah, Moutinho having a bit of an issue there on the straight. Poundgarten getting past. I wonder if that was a sort of a pedal issue, because that was in a straight line and he seemed to lose some speed. However, he does now seem to be keeping up with Barretto. But yeah, definitely a couple of positions lost there for that Pro Simtech car.
What I think is interesting is that as well with Barretto and Moutinho, it looked like he actually got out of the way of the Ramada car. So maybe they've got issues, or maybe they're just trying to conserve fuel and don't want to get involved in a battle. But here we have Georgi Nadeb defending from James Zuber in the Pinson Drillers car. That car now in P12, looking to get up the order. That gap very, very low as they head up towards the left-hander on this Grand Prix part of the track. One of the last remaining opportunities to overtake, potentially into the chicane, if not before then, because look, it's going to be a good exit for that Callaway Corvette. Moving to the inside for the right-hand kink. They can both just about go flat out through here, but they're going to be side by side as they head into the chicane, and Georgi Nadev probably does the right thing there and backing off, because we've still got just under half of the race to go, and an incident there could be race ending, and it's more important to get to the end than battle too hard and not make it at all.
So another replay here to see Moutinho. He's got this obviously before the overtake. Yeah, maybe he did just let him past. A little bit weird. Obviously, normally you fight for positions, but maybe he was having a couple of issues, didn't want to cause anyone else some harm. Yeah, bit of a weird one, but that is how it went. And now Zuba is already on the back of Andrea Crespi as well for Absolute Motorsport as we come out onto the Kudelbecker Höhe up to Flugplatz. Not necessarily a place where you want to overtake, but definitely after this, going all the way down to Arenberg at the end of the next straight can be a place. Oh, Zuba's lost it in the dirty air. Can he save it? Yes, he has. I don't believe he actually touched the Yarmco there. I think that was just the curb that he bounced off. So James Zuba saving that, but that is right there, the dirty air. As soon as you get onto the most extreme point where you're just asking everything from the aero and from the tires, if you lose that aero, the tires just give up and lose all your grip. But well saved there from James Zuba, although he'd just given up potentially 2 places, so he's now back down into 12th place.
That has undone his work for the last lap or so, but he was skillful and lucky in getting away with that. I think it was a combination of both. But here he goes as they head through Adana. Force getting very close behind Georgi Nadev there as he heads through the left-hander. He could go for a switchback here, going for a later apex. Can he get the exit? Yes, he does. He's going to be absolutely pounding on the throttle now, side by side. They have a BMW behind them. That's not going to deter Zuba from trying to take that position. Heading around the outside there. They've both got a break, and Zuba is going to take the position. Fantastic move there as he tries to recover from that incident just a moment ago.
And that is exactly what he needed to do, because you can't really overtake as you get towards this part of the track. So he would have been stuck behind, but he knows that he's obviously a little bit quicker. Now he wants to get back up to Crespi to try and overtake once again. So that was a very important move there from James Zuba. As you see, he's already pulling away from Nadev as Nico Barclay is now coming up to the back of these guys as he once again comes to a bit of a recovery drive situation. We're going to see a replay now. James Zuba, you see he's going to get really close, and as soon as he turns in, there's just going to be too much loading basically. He's lost all the aero grip and the tires just can't keep up doing that speed, and they give up, and there goes the back end. And then you're going to see, oh, we just cut away, but then you see Nadev obviously come past as we now see Nico Barclay coming up to, I believe this is the Lauda kink, going side by side, bit of contact rubbing into the braking zone. Can Nico Barclay go all the way around the outside? That is going to be an awesome overtake if he can keep it. And this is going to mean he's going to have the inside as we get towards Kesselchen as well. But he doesn't even need to get that far because he's already got the place. Now Nadev is going to have to get the slipstream all the way back for potentially a move into the Mutt curve unless he, or maybe he doesn't have anything to answer for. As we now seen Stefanko come in, end of lap 12. So this keeps on with his 6 lap stints as we see the Pescara car also leave, as well as Simoncic as well. So Simoncic has come in. That is very interesting. So Simoncic has obviously decided that he wants to basically follow the strategy, because now that he's got that little bit of a gap, he wants to follow the strategy and make sure he's not losing time from the undercut. However, Martin Stefanko has got out ahead of Jene Simoncic. So Stefanko has effectively taken the race lead here. Somehow, after all of this, because obviously Jene is now changing tyres, where I think Martin maybe didn't on that occasion.
One thing to add to that, though, Stefanko has just got a penalty, which is going to have a really, really big implication for that Williams team. Here is Felipe Barreto, though. That Ramada car on a charge up the order. He's behind Alexander Baumgarten in the Blackbirds Racing. Now, can he get that position? One of the driver, Rafael Zuma for Blackbirds, was the most consistent driver out at Silverstone. However, Blackbirds in 21st, it's not been a brilliant race for them, nor has it been for Ramada, although that could change. We've still got a fair way to go. There's still a lot of variables that can change. We've got quite a few DNS, so all the drivers need to do is make it to the end to get points. Here is David Junt and Cameron Sansano, though. David Junt very, very close behind the speedy Mike Porsche in his Scuderia Basilea. One we haven't talked about too much, but now they're getting a fair bit of airtime because this is very interesting indeed. Heading through this right-hand kink now. This is for P8 as well, so this is for some relatively big points too. You can see another speedy Mike ahead of the one in that Junt is battling now as they head into the Kleines Carousel to the last bit of the track. A bit of airtime there from Cameron Sansano means he's got a slight bit of oversteer, but this is Leon Bock and Christian Michel. Christian Michel down the inside into the chicane has taken that podium position now. That was an interesting move, and I think he had just a really good exit out of the last braking zone before then. But here is David Yunt again on Cameron Sansano. They are heading along Dottinger Hoa as they head towards the main straight. Now, he might not make the move here as we head through Tiergarten and Antonia Spucher, which is Antonia Spucher actually used to have a big beech tree, but also has an altar to St. Anthony, hence the name. So there's so much history around this track. But this is Nico Barkley. Having had that incident earlier, he's up into 11th. But Andrea Crespi in the Absolute Motorsport Callaway Corvette is trying to get past. Absolutely everything is unfolding at this point on the lap. We've got that Pinson driller car just ahead, a little bit between these two battles. But here's David Yunt as they head towards the Yokohama S. This could be his opportunity to make a move. It depends whether he can get close enough or not. I think he might be just slightly too far behind. He does have a sniff of the inside line. In fact, he's going to send it. Ooh, he is going to have the inside, but it will turn to the outside unless he goes for the laser apex, trying to maximize the exit speed. You can see getting very close behind that 911. He's going to move to the inside for the next turn. Under braking is where it all matters, because side by side through here is always very close as you're right on the limit. He's taken that position though. Fantastic move by David Yunt.
Yeah, very, very good move. He had to work for that one a little bit, but he managed to make it work, and that is very good for 8th position there for Scuderia Brasilia. And I was just having a look at what was happening, although we'll see this replay first. James Zuber on the back. I can't remember who this was on the back of. It might be Crespi, but he basically just got let past there. So Zuber, yeah, it was for Crespi, who has since dropped back down to 16th, so must be making a pit stop, or must have made a pit stop, as we now go on board with Pamgarten and Barretto. But I was just having a look to try and work out what happened with the Burst and Williams situation. And I think Stefanko might have done a very big brain move here to try and to do with the strategy. Obviously, he's going to have to make a driver change, whereas Simičić has already made that driver change with David Mrozek now being in the car. But I think this could work out very well indeed for this Williams team when they get to the final pit stop, just depending on what Yayovsky is doing as well. But I think Burst may have made a bit of an issue here. We'll have to see. As just think Crespi has actually gone out of the race. But first, we'll see Barretto. Can he get close enough? He's certainly going to have a bit of overspeed, but will he have the track position enough distance on this straight to try and get the overtake move? He's now going to go side by side into Tiergarten, and he's got ahead. So that's a little bit tight. He got alongside just a little bit later than he probably would have liked, but he still made the move up there for 21st position. But yeah, Crespi out of the race as he now goes into the pit box. But also noticed Christian Muscala a couple of laps ago had a DNF as well. We saw him spinning around. So let's see what this replay is all about with Georgi Nedev. Oh, getting just caught up behind, I think that was Crespi, potentially. And that just pushed him probably into the barrier on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I think that was very interesting because Crespi suddenly started braking in there. It was so close behind that there was nothing Nedev could really do in time to react. So I think, although that did cause a DNF, that is by no means Nedev's fault. And I think this is going to be what Crespi was doing. So you can see as they head through that final chicane of the track on the exit, we've got the grandstand in the way, but suddenly hits the brakes, maybe to aim for the pits, but that is a huge hit. Unfortunately, just going to the right of the pit lane there, and that is going to bring an end to the Caspian Motorsports car with just an hour and 15 minutes to go.
I didn't realize the contact was going to be that big. That was a hefty impact, but that bit of the Armco is almost head on compared to the other bits. So really big impact. So no wonder the wheel came off on that one. Very, very unfortunate indeed, as we're seeing this battle for what is currently the podium position. But we do need to see these guys make their pit stop, I believe, at the end of this lap. As we're now seeing it on board from Crespi. Yeah, he's going to get hit. Oh, really big impact there. I do believe you can actually repair your wheel. But obviously, they decided just to DNF that car as it is now out of the race. So yeah, Leon Bock is trying to get back up onto was effectively the podium position. However, once the pit stops work out, I do believe this will be for fourth position, not third. Either way, these guys will be coming into the pit lane at the end of this lap, I believe. And then we will get a little bit of a better view with what is going on as Yayovsky is already coming through the final chicane. And then we'll be able to see if he's going to come in. But I do expect that he does. No, he's going to stay out. He's going to stay out for another lap. So Simičić, this is such a weird strategy. So Yayovsky has already got 1 lap longer. He's now going 2 laps longer than the burst car. Don't know what's going on with their strategy, but I'm sure we'll see it work out at some point. As yeah, I think these guys for third and fourth are going to be making a pit stop. But again, we will see how this one works out, because it seems that strategy is a bit all over the place today.
Yeah, I think it was all triggered by the Williams car deciding to pit a fair amount of time before the other drivers. And we've just seen, obviously, for around the order incidents and repairs, they are just going to mess up their own strategies. But the overall strategy of all of the drivers doesn't seem to be following a specific pattern, because I think what's happening is that they just can't quite make it to the end of the race on 3 tanks of fuel. So that might be why they're deciding to do various pit stop strategies.
Oh, so I just saw Stefanko, but as you say, he had that penalty, didn't he? So that must be his drive-through penalty that he served. But obviously he's still miles ahead of Burst, because Burst obviously did a driver swap, which adds a little bit of time, and also a full service with tyres as well. Whereas I believe Stefanko is doing a double stint on this set of tyres.
Yeah, so tyres is also an interesting one, because we've seen different people changing tyres at different points, and this is Martin Stefanko now. So yeah, he did have that penalty for track extension. We did expect to see a few of those as a result of the track itself, just because it's easy to make a mistake and that can force you off the track around here, although it doesn't encourage you to take liberties of the track limits like some do. For example, Paul Ricard. This is the polar opposite to that track, though. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but this is Yuri Vizuzin for the core team, trying to catch up to Marcus Moutinho in that Pro Sim Tech BMW. So as you can see, there's a lot of BMWs on this grid. It's the most popular car out of all of the teams, and it looks like it's a good car, which is probably why it's so popular. And this battle here could be quite interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. We still have an hour and 10 minutes to go, though, so the drivers aren't going to be wanting to go for any rash moves quite yet. They're going to leave that to the very last stages, but Moutinho has gone very wide through there. Vizuzil, he's going to make the overtake. Yes, he is. He's got a fantastic exit in comparison, and that's going to be an easy 19th position.
And I just clicked on with James Zuber, and he's having a really big battle here with Cameron Sansano. We're just jumping on board, and you can see that David Yunt is actually a bit just up the road as well. So this could be an opportunity for James Zuber to try and get 2 positions here in the space of the next couple of quarters, because they're catching up to David Yunt as well. But Cameron Sansano is going to have to pull in there. And now Zuber has got that position for 9th place, but 8th place is now right ahead of him. He is caught up so much on that lap. He's going to hit the brakes. He's going to go straight on there. He's hit the barrier.
Oh,
and he
that
has
is
lost a wheel. That is a big impact, but I do believe, as I said, that you can actually repair it. So he is very lucky that he is right next to the pit lane.
That was a massive impact. He's so lucky for that to be just at Tiergarten, because had that been around the track, that would have been a certain DNF for James Zuber.
Sansano is now on the back of Yunt himself. So Yunt, not the quickest guy out there. His last lap was a 8-minute 20. So yeah, not the absolute quickest time. And Sansano is now catching up, but Nico Barkley, importantly, has caught up once again and got that Wanaka car inside the top 10. Let's hope that they can stay there this time and not have any more issues. But now he's getting very close, coming down to the Dunlop curve, and he's wiggling there a little bit, possibly trying to say, can you make this overtake easy, please? I'm on a charge. But yeah, the number 3 all there in 10th place, just struggling a little bit, but obviously coming back. And James Zuber has retired from the race, so that is the second Driller's car now out of the race, and I'm sure we're going to see the replay here. Yeah, just went on the grass. And once again, that Armco was a very awkward angle that he hit. And then he obviously had to slow up David Junt there and Sansano in the process. Interesting that they did retire. Maybe I am wrong and you can't fix your wheel damage. Or maybe they just didn't want to sit there for the length of time that would have taken, because obviously that would have been many minutes of damage repairs.
I think as well that Flying Goat, the sole Mercedes, are out of the race as well, with Thierry Bovo at the wheel.
Yeah, they are. Engine, it says next to their name, so I do wonder if they had another, like Mathieu Ducrot, maybe another downshifting moment, a little bit too quick, over-revving the car. The GT3 cars are actually quite sensitive to that, with the over-revving, which in some ways is actually quite good, because often it is quicker to sort of spam the downshifts and use the engine braking to help you brake a lot quicker. So it is good, as we see Esken getting a penalty as well. So another driver there. He is in the Caspian Motorsports, I believe, down in 22nd. But we have a bit of side-by-side action here between Evolution Motorsports and Burst Esports. So Burst get up there into 4th place. Evolution have been struggling just a little bit. They're now about 3 or 4 seconds off Lighter Velox. But that is Merjek getting past Leon Bock there for 4th place, as Burst try and regain a bit of control, because obviously they're about 15 or so seconds behind Williams now.
Yes, and Nico Barkley, he has done a good job, because remember, he had that pedal issue now. Behind Cameron Sansano, putting up quite a presence behind that Porsche. And ahead of Sansano is David Junt in that Scuderia Basilea. So that's going to be the next driver in the Barkley sights. But that he has to clear this Speedy Mike car first. And that's going to be a lot easier said than done, because Cameron Sansano has been putting up some really good fights so far this evening. And I don't think he's going to let 9th position go all too quickly. So it's going to be down to Nico Barkley in his BMW to try and find somewhere through and try and carry on the momentum of that Monaco car that has just been so high, as he makes a very risky move there, but it's going to pay off.
I would not want to be making a late braking move there into that corner, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And Nico Barkley there getting up into 9th place. So once again, the comeback is working, and he's now got David Junt just a few seconds ahead of him. However, ahead of that, it is about 1 minute and 20 seconds. 1 minute 20 seconds to the next car. So that just shows you how much the field has spread out. As we're seeing Yayovsky in the top right. Interestingly, he has got a cut on lap 3, lap 12, and I believe this lap as well. So that is 3 cuts that he's got already. So he does need to be careful in case he gets a penalty. But I would be expecting now lap 14 Yayovsky to be coming in after 2 7-lap stints. So yes, he is coming in. So this is quite an interesting one, because it means he may have to make a splash and dash at the end if we do get that 22nd lap, which we do believe that we will, unless he wants to save on this stint. But as we saw, even when he sat behind Simičić for pretty much the whole of the first stint, he wasn't able to save for an 8th lap that time either. So I do believe he's going to be having a splash and dash, which is obviously going to be a lot shorter than the pit stops of, for instance, Martin Stefanko, because he will have to probably do about 4 laps of fuel when he makes his pit stop.
Yeah, so of course Stefanko, he had that penalty, so Erhan Yayovsky, if he gets a penalty, he'll level out that playing field. Now what was interesting was that Cameron Sansano, he had a spin just after he was overtaken by Nico Barkley. That cost him about 10 seconds. He had Georgi Nadejevic just behind him, but he's cleared away a little bit. And that's going to be a little bit of a shock. He did touch the barriers, so maybe slight damage, but it's going to go the lead to Martin Stefanko there as he passes Erhan Jojowski in the pits. However, Stefanko is on a different strategy. Now this is Christian Michel going into the pits. David Mrožek behind him and passing him. Now Leon Bock carrying along the straight. So Leon Bock not too far behind David Mrožek. That gap, 3 seconds. So relatively big. However, that Evolution Motorsports car not looking too shabby at the moment. Of course, all off kilter with these strategies though.
So they, by my calculations, are going on to their 8th lap. So Evolution are obviously trying this 2-7 and 1-8 lap stints, it looks like. And that would explain why they've been a lot slower in the previous stint, because they would have had to be saving a lot more fuel. So I believe that this is their 8th lap, which means that they don't need to make a splash and dash. So that could be quite crucial. Obviously, they are quite a few seconds behind on raw pace, but that could be quite crucial as we get towards the next part of the race. And you are seeing a bit of a rundown along the bottom of the screen of the order. And as you can see, Knight of Velox doing pretty good there. 2 cars inside the top 6. Speedy Mite and Basilia also inside the top 8. Wanako sitting there in 9th. Sensano there in 10th place. As we see Milan actually trying to get on the back of David Junt now in the picture. They've also got the 2 core cars. Interestingly, Core have got 2 cars with 2 different chassis, so trying to get the best of the BOP, even though they're down in 13th and 14th. Volante there in 15th as well. We've got Trajan Donut 17th. Another core car in 18th place. Pro Simtech in 19th, and Ramada down there in 20th position. Then have Caspian in 21st. Pescara all the way down in 22nd and a lap down, I believe, unless they've got that back with the pit stops. Then Undercover in 23rd place, Farron Grau in 24th. And then we have the DNS. We've got Zuba, Bovo, as we actually see Buckley trying to come past now, and that's going to be a fairly easy move on David Junt. And we got the early DNFs here. We've got De Crop, got Seawolf, Pro Simtech, Pinsim Drillers in 32nd position as well. And then the final one, we've got Joy Racing, Ground Effect, and Omicron Sim Racing as well. So 35 cars, quite a few DNFs in the end. And obviously we still have 1 stint to go, 1 hour and 1 minute to go in this race.
Yeah, and I'm not sure who it was before the race, but I think someone predicted something like 25 finishes, and at this rate, that's looking likely. We've lost 10 in the first 2/3 of the race. With an hour to go, drivers are going to be starting to look more towards the end rather than the start now, as this is Cameron Sansano coming into the pits. He might have a little bit of damage. This might be a slightly longer stop, but you also have the other Speedy Mite's car, as you can see him pull up next to him in the pit lane there. So they're going to be pitting at the same time. Ollie McGowan very close behind his teammates, as you can see.
So I've been trying to have a bit of a look to see how this strategy is going to work out. So Stefanko's leading the race by 17 seconds, but he will have to take the longest final pit stop, because I believe he'll need, if he still does 6-lap stints, he'll need about 4, maybe 5 laps of fuel finish. Whereas Mrožek is only going to have maybe 2 laps of fuel to go to the finish. But he's 17 seconds behind. So is 17 seconds going to be the extra pit stop time? Possibly not. But I think Stefanko will also have to take tyres, whereas I believe Mrožek won't. So once again, that puts that back in the favour of Burst. Then just behind them, a couple of seconds, is Leon Bock, but he only has 1 pit stop to make as well, which will be his second stop, but not his third. So I believe the other guys have been fast enough to basically make up the time for the extra pit stop already, because he's going to have a pit stop this lap, then he's going to have 7 laps of fuel to put in. So I believe he's actually going to have the longest out of that top 3. Then Risto Capit behind, he is also going to have to do a splash and dash, but I believe that's only going to be 1 lap, but then he's 36 seconds off the lead. So it's going to be very interesting how this all works out, because each of these 4 cars all have a bit of a shout in their own regard, but they all have a different pit stop to make, and the timing and the lengths of those are very important to where they come out. So we're going to have to keep an eye when we get to those pit stops, as we see 4 team in 18th place getting past Trojan Donut there, with Zulu getting past into 17th place. But can Zupan actually come back? It looks like he's going to be a slipstream here maybe come down to Tiergarten, and he can get the position back because it looks like the BMW overtook a little bit too early. And now the Porsche is coming back down the inside underneath the Bilstein Bridge. And he's going to have a pretty good track position here, actually. Although they're going to go side by side through Tiergarten. This is not the place where you want to see a bit of contact there. And the BMW's gone off. They're going to be big contact. And both of them there going into the barrier. That is not a nice collision at all. Can they both get it going, or do they have heavy damage? It looks like Trojan Donut has got going and Court as well, but that was always going to happen when you go side by side through that part of the track. That part of the track is literally 2 cars wide, and it looks like Yuri here maybe has a little bit of damage. We'll see if they come into the pit lane as Zupan has, and I guess Vizuluzo will come in as well. So yeah, that's really not a nice accident to have, but again, it's what you get when you go side by side through that part of the track.
Yeah, that really is unfortunate because they had that initial contact, and unfortunately that initial contact set them on course to hit each other again. The first one wasn't too bad, but the second one was the real hard hitter. Luckily, it was right at the end of the lap, so they don't have to limp it around, but that's still going to be some repairs they're going to have to deal with. But now we've got Matthew Fennell in the P11 Speedy Mite racing car. Both Speedy Mites changing drivers. The other driver, the other Speedy Mite now being driven by Rob Timpen. That's the number 81. Now you can see Lucas Schramek for the core team Callaway Corvette is in front here, P10. However, Matthew Fennell is quite close behind. He's going to be looking to try and put up a bit of a fight as they head through the foxhole now. Very steep downhill before quite a sharp uphill into the a very technical part of the Nordschleife, the Adenauer Force, which is always very close. And you can see there Matthew Fennell trying to get his nose in on the inside on that left-hander. He's going to have to back off. He does go for it under the brakes, but he's just not got the opportunity to find a way past. However, on the exit, it's still going to be very close. We might see an attempt through Metzgersfeld, which is an interesting corner because you have that initial dab on the brakes through there before the heavy braking zone here. However, there's not really that opportunity to get past it. It's so narrow on the exit, and you really have to follow a certain part of the track through Kallenhard now towards the Spiegelkurve, or the mirror curve, I suppose that translates as. And yeah, look at this. Lucas Schramek, he is really just parking it on the track, and Matthew Fennell not really finding an opportunity to get past because of the nature of the Nürburgring and into this heavy braking zone there. Very difficult part of that track, and back out. Yeah, Matthew Fennell, it's just so hard to try and make an overtake here as they head through wide sides and onto the X-Muller, because this is where the plan for the original start-finish line of the track was to be. This is Martin Stefanko now, 55 minutes to go, coming in for his final pit stop of the race. David Mroshek is going to take the lead. However, is he due another pit stop?
Yes, so they will all have to make a pit stop. It's just on different times. So interestingly, as we see side by side here into that chicane, and Zupan gets past, but Stefanko is coming in with Leon Bock. But this is Stefanko's third stop, where this is only Bock's second stop, such is the way that the laps have worked out. So Stefanko is coming in already, end of lap 15, and he's... Oh, why are they all confusing today? So he has only done a maximum of a 6-lap stint. However, we believe there's 22 laps, which means he's going to have to do 7 laps on this stint. But he hasn't done 7 laps at all yet this race. So this is going to be very interesting indeed. And right next to him is Leon Bock making his second pit stop for his third stint. So he has managed to basically save the splash and dash. And this is going to be him legit coming out of the pit lane in position terms with Williams. So however far behind they are now is however far they need to catch up. Hector Bellic has now got into this Williams car, number 23, and he needs to take it to the end of the race. But I do believe that's going to be a 7-lap stint, but they haven't done 7 laps yet. So that depends if they were maybe under-fueling for those earlier stints. This is a very interesting strategy because they only pit, I believe, 3 laps ago for their actual pit stop. This is very, very good, but very confusing as well to see what strategies these guys are doing, as Pashko Schmidt has got into that Evolution kart for the final stint as well. So this is very interesting indeed, but I can tell you, R8G Esports messed up a little bit with that pit stop. When they swapped over to Risto Capit, they didn't change tyres. However, a driver swap takes pretty much the same as changing tyres, which meant they had the extra time for the driver swap, but they have old tyres. So Risto Capit is going to have a few issues here because he is going to have to basically use second-hand tyres and then probably swap at the next stop anyway, but then they've already lost the time, but they're not getting the benefit of the new tyres this stint. So they are going to, in total, lose quite a lot of time compared to where they should be, because Yovsky said they lost about an extra 26 seconds, which is how far they are behind David Mocek.
Yeah, and that strategy element in this race has played probably the biggest factor out of anything here. And as you're saying, with those tyres, that could really mess up the R8G Esports car. I mean, they're 35 seconds clear of Williams Esports, but the tyre change could quite easily mitigate that. And Risto Capit, he's not been given the longer stint, he's got the shorter stint, so he's going to be trying to push as much as possible. But on worn tyres, it's hard to get into the thick of it quite as quickly. But here is Matthew Fennell along Dottinger Hoa now, trying to get past Lucas Schramek in that core team. They've been battling for a fair amount of time. That Speedy Mike Porsche, though, can he just about get past? That is so close. They're equally matched for pace. Now, we saw just a lap ago what kind of risk can be posed through Tiergarten as they go side by side. However, Lucas Schramek does concede the position. This is Gasper Zupan, though, with Yuri Vuzuzil, who is trying to get past. Look how close they are, though. That gap just at 1/10 of a second as we head through the left-hander now. That BMW just not finding the opportunity to get past. Matthew Fennell, though, has been re-overtaken by Lucas Schramek. So he's going to have a look back down the inside into the Yokohama S. If he can't get the inside line for the first part, he will have it for the second part. Is he going to shut the door? Yes, he will. Can Lucas Schramek, though, get the exit? It doesn't look like it. In fact, it looks like Matthew Fennell has managed to get on the power quickly, and he's going to take 10th position, but can he hold it? Because Lucas Schramek does seem to be putting up a bit of a fight.
Yeah, really nice battle here for that 10th place, and Speedy Mike looking to have a fairly decent race, currently in 10th and 12th place as we jump on board with Petter Burlak in that 3rd place. So who knows how this is exactly going to end. So they are 34 seconds ahead of R8G, but R8G will need to make a splash and dash. But then Williams have never done 7 laps this race, so they probably will have to save a lap of fuel, or at least save maybe half a lap of fuel. So they're not going to be able to go at full speed, whereas Capit will. But then Capit's been hindered because he's on old tyres now. So it's all very interesting, but he's also going to have to change tyres at the next pit stop. When he does, well, actually, maybe not. With Splash and Dash, he may be able to hold them on. Although he's just coming up behind, I'm on board Risto Capit, he's come up behind a car with no rear wing, which I believe is Farron Grau. So Farron Grau, down in 24th place, has no rear wing. So all sorts of stuff going on here, as Marcos Moutinho has also left the race. So once again, a lot of action happens at once, as we are also still looking at Zupan holding on for 19th place. So yeah, a few things to try and look at on the track right now. So both Grau were out of rear wing and Moutinho out of the race.
Yeah, it's been a very dramatic race so far. Palmgarten is in the pits, but Gasper Zupan, look at that. Vlugil is trying to get past. He just can't get that moment, although he might find it soon. Gasper Zupan with Australian Donut Automotive, he's really just parking it as much as possible to prevent Core Team pushing through. And Core Team have their 3 entries, 2 BMWs and their 1 Callaway Corvette. And it looks like, for now anyway, Zupan is going to hold on to it, but they are on the Dottinger Hoa. This is the prime overtaking spot on the track. And with that slipstream, you can see like an Exocet missile pulling to the left-hand side goes Zuzil, and he is going to take 18th place. Can he hold on to it though, as they head through the next couple of turns, through Antonio Spuka and then into Tiergarten for those final little S's before the pit straight. It looks like the core team in 18th position. I think they're going to be quite happy with how that's worked out for them.
Yeah, certainly indeed. But yeah, they got up there into 18th place, so some decent points for them at least, and they seemingly pulled away just a little bit as well. So yeah, actually just had a look. Grouse hasn't got back, but also in 22nd place, Hesken is also without a rear wing, so currently 2 cars out on track without a rear wing. So it's certainly been a race of attrition in many ways, and there's still just under 48 minutes to go left in the race as well. I mean, I guess we did expect that from the Nordschleife, but certainly it is quite interesting where every couple of laps you have a look and there's another car without a rear wing. So first of all, P24, Farron Grau. Oh, we saw another car there earlier going off on that little on the little chicane there, coming into this part of the track, just losing it on the weight transfer, as we now see David Mrocek coming towards the start-finish line once again with 47 minutes remaining. He's got a lead of some 33 seconds to Risto Capit. So these guys still need to make a splash and dash, but they have 1 minute to Petter Burlak. So going to be quite tight for some of them. We'll have to see which strategy is going to come out on top.
One thing to mention is Marcus Moutinho has gotten going again, although he's about a lap down from Farron Grau. So I just had a bit of a weird thing with my timing screen. I actually think Farron Grau's ahead of him now. Anyway, David Mrocek though in the lead of the race. Now Farron Grau is making his way back to the pit slowly but surely, as there are yellows in sector 1. But Mrocek, he's got to just be consistent until the end of the race, because right now it's a bit of a grand national. Anyone could win in those top few cars, and it's all going to come down to who pitted when. This is going to be a replay though of Keskin for the Caspian Motorsport. Oh, that is a big hit. There goes the rear wing. Oh, hitting the barrier not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 4 times, and riding along it for good measure. That is really unfortunate with under a third of the race to go.
And I was just looking a little bit further down. So the Knight of Felix cars are looking pretty good at the moment in 4th and 6th place. But Pascal Schmidt is going to be going to the end, where I believe Roy McDuff and Max Barkley will both need to do a little bit of a splash and dash. So I think this Evo Evolution Motorsports car is looking very good for a 4th place. Excuse me, for a 4th place finish. So that's worked out pretty well for them, because they were the only ones so far who have been able to do an 8-lap stint that I've seen anyway. And that is really going to help them as we get towards this latter part of the race. So all Pascal can do now is go as fast as he can to try and maybe make something work. However, he is about 45 seconds behind Petter Burlak.
Yeah, these gaps, they've definitely extended throughout the race, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think it's going to be hard for Evo to pull off a win, although they could definitely fight for some solid points. They've been doing so far today. They've been doing a very good job as far as I can see anyway. So they're in 5th place now. The other drivers there, RAG, Risto Capet. Now, he wasn't too fortunate with his tyres, and here comes Nico Barkley. So this will be Nico Barkley's final stop. That Monaco car, P7 now. They'll drop down maybe 2 places, down to P9 from this pit stop. Here comes David Yuntno, actually. So the Scuderia Basilea car also pitting. We're having quite a few pit stops at the moment. Here is Lucas Schramek, though, going very slowly. Is there damage to the Corvette? That is interesting. I think we'll have to see a replay of that. But here comes Georgi Nadev as well. So P7, 8 and 9 all in the pits together for this final stint of the race. Just a 3/4 of an hour to go until we really have that sprint to the end around the Nürburgring. David Yunt then right at the front of the pit lane, and there is Rob Timpen. He's had contact there through, that's the full carousel, I believe. No, that's the Kleinis carousel, actually. Rob Timpen, though, in P11. That's Speedway Racing. A bit of contact to get past Lucas Stramek, but he's managed to pull it off, and that's going to be P11, which means the two Speedy Mites are back next to each other on track. So this is going to be a replay of Lucas Stramek and why he lost so much time. You can see him coming over the crest now, and he's slightly overcooked it, and that is really unfortunate. So he's had a big hit on the front. It could have been worse, but he's managed to get going. It has cost him a position, though.
Yeah, you don't want to be making too many mistakes, but unfortunately, we've actually seen, I would say, a lot more mistakes than I was expecting up until this point, especially as if you consider this is only a 3-hour race. We often see 24-hour races here with getting quite a lot of drivers, but that's just the nature of the track. As you see Rob Timpen now trying to just get down the inside of the mini carousel there, which he just about managed to do, but that was a little bit more awkward than he probably would have wanted it to be. So we see Max Barkley 23.5 seconds behind Pascal Schmidt, and I do believe he needs to do a splash and dash as well. So that's why I think Evolution Motorsports are looking really good here for this 4th place once McDuff makes a splash and dash as well, as McDuff is only about 17 seconds ahead. So I think he would lose that position there. So yeah, the two United Velox having a much better day than they did out in Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, 4 weeks ago now. But yeah, it looks like Evolution are going to get on top of them. As we've seen, anything can happen with the drivers here.
This is Ramada. So remember, we saw a few laps ago, they're about P23. They're now P17. And they really are doing a good job. They're behind the Blackbirds again. This is Rafael Zuma. He was the most consistent driver at Silverstone last time out. But is he quick enough to prevent Carlos Basto from getting past as they head up towards the Kleinis carousel now? This looks like it might be a move made along the straight. Although the Bentley even has quite a large profile, it's got a fair amount of power. And against the McLaren, it's going to make a big difference. So out of there we go towards Galgenkopf and on to Dottinger Hoa. So the slipstream, in fact, a very good exit. Carlos Basto sticking to his line. Rafael Zuma pulling out of the way. It looks like maybe trying to break the toe. I'm not entirely sure, but it's going to be a lot easier than I think Carlos Basto would have expected to take the 16th position. However, Rafael Zuma, he might decide to pull back into the slipstream and try and get himself towed along. He doesn't seem to be doing so. Maybe he's trying to cool brake or the like. However, they head towards Antonius Bucher now, followed by Tiergarten. Tiergarten named so because it was a former burial ground for animals that lost their lives in combat, which is actually quite an interesting story, and that just shows how far back this track stretches. But there is Carlos Basto in 16th position, having that Ramada car doing quite a big push in the latter stages of this race to try and make up some positions. They're doing a good job of it too.
Yeah, certainly are. There's been a number of teams actually, such as who we've just got on board with now, Nico Buckley. There's been quite a few of them who dropped back and have had to try and make their way back. But that is obviously one reason why we come endurance racing. It's not like a sprint race where if you have one crash, you're basically out of a chance of any positions. You have the 3 hours, or maybe 2.5 if you crash after 30 minutes, to try and get back. And that's certainly what Wanako have done here, getting up into 8th place. They were down in something like 26th place at one point. And obviously there have been a few DNFs to help that. But even then, getting up into 8th place is a good achievement. And he's now only 2 seconds behind David Yunt. So I do believe this is going to be a position gained at some point. But as we mentioned earlier, ahead of David Yunt is this huge gap. 95 seconds it is to the Knight of Velix car of Max Barkley. So yeah, a little bit difficult for him to try and get up there. But at least 7th place would be some decent points. Although it's still not where he would have wanted to be.
Definitely not. But I think having come back from, as you said, from it's like 27th position, I don't think they can complain about a finish in the top 10 because they've done a really good job. And Nico, he did have that issue with his pedals, but he's managed to pull it back as well because they lost a couple of positions, managed to regain it. There are a couple of yellows, but here is Barkley. He's really close behind David Junt now. This could be for 7th position. Having a look round the outside then as they head very fast along this relatively straight bit of track, and you can see David Junt slightly on the curves on the inside there, making the car a little bit unsettled. But look at that, Nico Barkley absolutely pulling away through that last bit, David Junt having to dab on the brakes. And that's going to be 7th position for Monaco, and they are just doing a fantastic job at a comeback drive.
Indeed, 7th place, still decent points for them. Oh, as Rob Timpen, 12th place, has gone out of the race. Suspension damage next to his name. He's coming up into Adenauer Force, but in fact, he doesn't even quite make it there because he has crashed on the kink into this complex, and that is going to be big damage. And he will eventually retire from the race, which is unfortunate because we were just saying how good the Speedy Mike team was doing with their 2 Porsches. But that is that car at least out of the race, and Rob Timpen is in the number 91 entry.
I have to say my list of entries is slowly but surely being crossed off, and that's a big kick in the teeth. With just under 40 minutes to go, it has really been a race of attrition so far, and we've still got some time to go, and we can see, as we've just seen, that there's still that opportunity of having terminal damage, so the drivers are just going to have to be more and more careful as that clock winds down. But it is, the further into the race you go, the more frustrating a DNF becomes.
And DNFs are very critical to the overall championship position as well. I believe you do still get points if you complete over half of the race though, so which they have done, so they should still get points for where they finish. Obviously they're going to be put effectively next to the most recent person who DNF, so they're probably going to be 23rd, so I believe they should still get points for 23rd, but that's still not what it would have been had they been 11th or 12th place. So that is going to be quite disappointing for them, because with only an 8-race season, you've got to make sure you get as much or as many points, I should say, when you get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you finish low in the points, with 39 cars in the championship, you can't be sure where it's going to all end up. And just a few points that make the difference between you finishing and being classified, or not finishing, or DNFing rather, but being classified a little bit lower. Those few points could make all the difference by the end of the championship. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to try and make it to the end. And that's the really big problem that the Nordschleife brings, because it is just so difficult to not crash. And
not crashing is the name of the game, but unfortunately there's been quite a few this race, as we see one of them being Eros Mashuli there in the top right corner of your screen. So that is that's one reason, for instance, why they are down in 19th place when they were up to, I think, about 7th or 8th position towards the start of the race. So yeah, not what you want to be doing.
Definitely not. I mean, Williams Esports, they're in P3, looking to get a podium finish. Rory McDuff, 100 seconds off the leader, 38 seconds off the Williams car. Williams still in with a shot of second, potentially. It all depends on how the fuel and tyre strategies play out. RHG Esports, could they hold on to that second position? I think that's probably the most difficult task out of anyone in the top 3 to hold their positions. With Gasper Zupan now, he's behind that core team car. There's been the focus of quite a lot of attention in the last half an hour, that BMW and the Porsche. Actually, both of those cars have seen their fair share of screen time, and this is the Remco Major in the undercover sim racing Bentley. That has not gone all too well for him. He's had a bit of a spin there. I'm interested to see what's happened there. It doesn't look like he's sustained any massive damage. I mean, his wing was still attached, which is more than can be said for some people that have crashed.
Yeah, there was someone else who crashed there. I think it might have been one of the Mascala brothers. But seemingly that part of the track, you're able to have a spin and just go in a straight line and not have any contact with the barriers. But unfortunately, there's been quite a few cars who have made contact with the barriers. Although the fortunate thing with this obviously being sim racing, you don't have to pay for the Armco repairs as you would do if you crashed there in real life.
Yeah, definitely. And also we have to wait for repairs either, because if we had to see that, we'd be here all day. However, this is Remco Major. So he's coming down the hill now in that Bentley. You can see him go to the left, and he's clipped the curb, and that's what's just upset the stability of the car. In fact, he's gone for a full quadruple roll.
Oh my word.
6 rolls. That's huge. He might be coming into the pits as a result of that. I would fail to see why he doesn't need repairs, because that was a big one.
Yeah, safe to say we haven't really. Oh, he's really struggling to get back actually. But yeah, I have to say we haven't really mentioned undercover at all today, and that kind of sums it up. Unfortunately, they're down in 20th place, and he's trying to get back. Race director Sean Jacobs just advising everyone of him being slow. But we are seeing this battle still go on between Trojan Donut and Core Team, as Major just crashes again on his in-lap to the pits. As he goes really wide there. Oh, he manages to save it, so he doesn't spin, unlike Bohem Milan did earlier on, but that means that he's not going to get the slipstream, or at least a powerful slipstream coming down this straight. So Max Barkley in 6th place. What has he done in Miskersfeld? Is he going to go too deep on the brakes? Yes, he has. And he's gone for a little bit of a spin there.
Yeah, and Remco being a little bit reprimanded there by the race director. But you can see now, as we enter the final half an hour of the race, it's all getting a little bit scrappy. I think the cars are quite well warm, because this is just a brutal track to drive around. And I think the drivers as well, they're going to be getting fatigued. And especially those that have been doing driving for a fair amount of time already. And you can see here that the Core Team car, it did have that off, but managed to keep it out of the barrier. Some drivers haven't been quite so lucky. It really is 50-50 whether you hit the barrier or not if you touch the grass. However, P18 now, looking for P17, going to move to the outside of Gasper Zupan in the Porsche. And you can see in the background there's a car there. He has got the outside. Can he maximise speed on the exit, or is that going to be Zupan? There you can see a little bit of a slide on the rear of the Porsche. It could compromise his exit speed, and I think that's going to be P17 for the Core Team car.
Damaged car has just entered Sector 3.
Yeah, and once again, that battle flip-flops. And they've been having a good battle actually, but now Mashuli is getting involved, only less than a second behind, and he's now getting on the back of Zupan. And this could be a position, well, maybe 2 positions actually, for that number 8 Pescara car.
Yeah, and it was Mashuli that had that huge crash earlier where their car needed, I think they had a 4-minute pit stop repairing it. And they're in P19 now. They could try and get to P17, which wouldn't be too bad of a comeback, to be honest.
Yeah, wouldn't be too bad in reality of how the things have gone on. And I just wanted to see what the amount of points is for that part of the track. But we'll see Mashuli come down the inside now. This is giving him good track position there to get past Zupan. So Zupan losing 2 places as we go underneath the final 30 minutes. We have 15 places, going to be somewhere, oh sorry, about 16, 17 places, going to be somewhere around 15 points. So 15 points, still not too bad to come home with, considering the amount of issues that they have had.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think trying to get to the end here around the Nordschleife is quite an achievement in and of itself, because it is just such a difficult track to drive, and you can always feel quite happy with yourself when you manage to take it around without absolutely barreling it into the Armco. And you can see Georgi Nedev in the top right. He's trying to get that 9th position off of the Speedy Mite Porsche, the number 92, the sole remaining Speedy Mite, and just try and take that position from Matthew Fennell. However, we've got Eros Mashudi, Gasper Zupan behind, but Eros is now looking at the core team car in front of him with the Go team of Georgi Nadev. He's catching up to Matthew Fennell, but this is the onboard of Mashudi in the top right as we go to Matthew Fennell and Georgi Nadev. Nadev is really catching up that gap down to 0.3 of a second. We could see an attempt at a move here, because what we've seen around the Nordschleife section of the track is the fast bits are the ones that people have been making their overtakes on rather than into the braking zones. So it's going to be when they're on throttle, I believe, as we head through YouTube corner towards Flansgarten 1, which is where the Earls of Nürburgring used to have their little crops and flowers, which is quite interesting, to be honest. But of course, it's been replaced by tarmac, and for good reason, in my opinion, anyway. With Matthew Fennell, though, he's doing well to try and hold off Georgi Nadev for now. However, when they get to the Dottinger Hoa, that is the point of the track where it could swing in the Go Team Racing car's favour. Of course, we've seen quite a lot of battling between BMWs and Porsches. Now, if I was Georgi Nadev, I would be holding off, actually, as we head through the Kleines Carousel now. I wouldn't want to make the move until I got to Dottinger Hoa. However, he's going to go for it now, moving down the inside of the Porsche onto the curb just to get that rotation. And Fennell has run slightly wide, so I think Nadev might just be able to hold onto that 9th position. He's got a good run onto Dottinger Hoa. Matthew Fennell actually slightly slower, that gap now a second, so Georgi Nadev clearly a better racer than I, which I think I probably knew anyway, as we head down to core team driven by Roman Prickrell, trying to hold off Bart Slobodjian in the Volante Racing Aston Martin, a car we haven't seen too much of this evening.
Yeah,
he almost has a big side there.
Yeah, they were doing pretty decent actually in the early stages. They were something like 8th or 9th, but I can't remember the issue they had, but they had a bit of an issue. I think it was when maybe Milan spun. I think they got caught up with that with Prodan, I believe. It was that incident where they had a bit of an issue, so they have dropped down a little bit, and they're coming up once again behind a core team car. We've seen a lot of the core organisation today over the course of their 3 or 4 cars that they've got racing. As they come up through Brunchen, is getting very wiggly on the exit is Bart Slobodjian. So he's really starting to push. Well, he's trying to anyway, with 26 minutes to go. We're obviously getting to that point in the race where the people who are doing who will need to do their splash and dashes are going to be starting to calculate how much they need to do. Obviously about 26 laps to go. That is basically 3 and a bit laps. In terms of the raw pace, David Mojcik, race leader, he is now coming up to the carousel part of the track. So it is looking like there's going to be 3 laps to go after this one. But then, though, the drivers will have to work out exactly how much fuel they need when they make that final splash and dash.
Yeah, definitely. Even though the clock's been counting down the duration of the race, it's only now that the drivers are going to be truly counting backwards from the finish rather than upwards from the start. And you're seeing that now, Bart Slobodjian with Roman Prickrell. That battle could be a final battle. Whoever comes out on top here could very well finish in that position. So these are going to be the really crucial moves. This is going to be the move on Bart Slobodjian by Prickrell there along Dottinger Hoa, and that is going to be how it finishes. So we're going to be heading through Tiergarten, and you can see there Bart Slobodjian. Oh, that is a big hit on the left hand side there, which explains why he is behind Prickrell, and you can see him getting overtaken as well, and he heads into the pits.
And just being told by Ruben, that replay is actually from lap 2. So that is just showing why they lost all that time. So it was actually some more of their own doing. So, but he's now got his nose down the inside of core team. It looks like that Aston actually has some pretty decent straight line speed. So he obviously got a good exit out of the chicane, and he's going to make that move nicely there down into turn number 1, 13th place for Volante. Nice little move, fairly easy for the number 66. And now they've got to try and work their way ahead, as that next car ahead is only about 6 seconds. That is potentially doable over the next few laps.
Yeah, definitely. And if Barcelona is on a push forward, he's going to have to keep an eye out behind him, as I think we've got Zuma here being overtaken. Yeah, we've got Zuma and Eros Mashuli, who we're riding on board with now. The ATP Auto Tyler car going to get past as well. So Zuma being double overtaken. That's the second time where we see that the car in front of a trio going along the Dottinger has dropped to the back, and Mashuli, who was at the back, could actually take the front. So yeah, that is apparently the trend, that when they're going along the Dottinger, if you're at the back, you go to the front, and if you're at the front, you go to the back. And the Zhuzhou will stay in the middle with the cars swapping ends on him.
Yeah, that is just how powerful the slipstream can be. Or not necessarily can be, is factually just being shown there, as Pescara now come in for their splash and dash with 23 minutes to go. But as I said, I do believe, at least for the people towards the front, it's going to be exactly 3 laps to go. But the people at the back might be going into a fourth from where they are on already. And Mrocek is now coming to take his splash and dash as well. So that means with 23 minutes to go, and 8 minutes per lap. That is basically 3 laps to go. So he will need to take 3 laps of fuel. So if anyone stays out another lap before their splash and dash, they will obviously then only have to take 2 laps of fuel. So they will save a couple of seconds there. And obviously he's only going to stop for a little bit of time, because 3 laps is obviously going to be about half a tank, or maybe just a little bit less than half a tank. Now he comes and leaves out of the pit lane. And he is going to actually retain the lead of the race. Such is how quick the splash and dash is. So he is actually in such a good position here, because Petter Burlak definitely doesn't have to make a pit stop again. And he is going to be probably around 30 seconds. Well, 20, okay, maybe 23 seconds behind him. And obviously Risto Kappa is going to have to make a splash and dash as well. So this looks like a pretty slam dunk victory for Burst Esport. However they've worked out the strategy, it looks like it is going to be working. And RHG will be ruining themselves for making that mistake with the tyre changes and leaving Risto Kappa out on those old tyres almost by accident when they did the driver swap. So obviously he hasn't been able to go as quick as he wanted in this stint. But yeah, Burst Esport, they've already made the pit stop and they are comfortably in the lead. So this is looking very nice indeed. So yeah, Capit back there in second place. He's going to have to try and do something special, really, if he even wants to battle for this the second place, because Petter Burlak, we're pretty sure he's going to the end. And he's going to be living his life nicely once Capit makes his pit stop.
Yeah, I think that the Burst Esports guys, they've just been playing it so well. They did it at Silverstone, and I think they're set to do it again this evening. 20 seconds clear of Risto Capet. I think that's enough, and they've just been playing it so well. Rory McDuff, Nita Velix, they're just out, I say just outside, they're a minute outside of those podium positions. So I don't think they're going to be able to take that position, but it's going to be really interesting to see who comes out on top between Peter Broljak and Risto Capit, because that gap is only 5 seconds with 20 minutes to go. That could change on a track like the Nürburgring.
Absolutely could. We've seen enough people already have issues. I believe we are up to 13 DNFs in this race already, which is quite incredible. That's a third of the field, well, a bit more actually than a third of the field already have had issues resulting in DNF. A number of others out there have had issues and still racing. So anything can happen in this final 20 minutes of the race, but it's certainly looking very good for the Burst Esport camp. And all we can do now is wait to see how the strategies work out for everyone else. So to run you through from the top a little bit. So Mrocek is going to the end now. Capit will have to make a splash and dash, we believe, for 1 lap of fuel. Petter Burlak we believe is going to the end. Then Roy McDuff, same situation, we believe is 1 lap of fuel as well, with Pascal Schmidt also going to the end. And in both cases, between those both pairings, the ones going to the end aren't too far behind the ones making a splash and dash. So that should be Schmidt and Burlak moving up a position respectively themselves. And that will give Knight of LX a pretty nice 5-6 result as well. So that is how the top 6 are looking, with Nico Barkley there in 7th, but he doesn't really have much issues from anyone behind.
No, definitely not. But we have still got some on-track battles, because these guys really are going right to the end with the racing that they've got themselves involved in. We've got Bart Slobodkin trying to get past Lukas Schramek. I mean, that core team has been at the forefront of quite a few battles recently, and Volante Racing definitely making their way onto the stream as well. P13 at the moment, they're going to go for P12. It's quite interesting to see who goes on where, because you can see that they're taking kind of different lines. The Aston Martin probably driving quite differently to the Corvette. They're two very different cars anyway, as they head through the uphill section of the track now. Can Bart Slobodkin get that position? He is looking round the outside. Now, this is a faster section of track, a section of track that's more likely to see overtakes than others. And I think we're now heading towards a braking zone that could be a potential way to make a move, as Bart Slobodkin getting very, very close, heading downhill again. You can see this is truly a roller coaster portion of the Nordschleife. Lukas Schramek, though, holding on for now. Bart Slobodkin trying to just get his nose in, but he's slightly too far back. This is really interesting to see who's going to come out on top here as they head through the Kleines Carousel towards the very last section of the track, towards Galgenkopf and onto the Dossier, pretty much flat out from here on out. Bart Slobodkin is in the prime position to take 12th position because he is behind, which counterintuitively it means he's probably going to take that front position, and you can see that gap is closing down rapidly. He's going to move to the left hand side of Lukas Schramek, and you're going to be able to see from the onboard camera there he is appearing on the left hand side, and he is going to try and push forward and hold on to that position. It just depends whether he can hold on to it through Antonius Bucher and into Tiergarten. It looks like he might just do it, because Lukas Schramek, and we've seen earlier how risky it can be to go side by side through here, and I think Lukas Schramek at this point in the race not trying to take any more risks. We've literally got 16 minutes to go, and an unnecessary risk bringing an end to the race this late on would be absolutely heart destroying.
And Bart is doing really well, as he's going to get another position there with Ryan Nash going into the pit lane. So up to 11th place for Volante. So they're making some progress in this final stint. So maybe Slobodkin is maybe a quicker driver. And always I say that he goes so deep there to turn 1 and he hits the fence, and he's going to be re-overtaken here, just as I was saying how good he was doing. He went way too fast there. Way too fast into turn number 1.
I think that was a case of double commentator's curse, because he's gone straight off there, and that's... Well, we were saying how you don't want to have an accident this late on, and then you're saying about how well he was doing, and then he goes straight off there. However, we've got Risto Capet now with Peter Brujak just behind. We think Risto Capet has got to pit though, so we'll see whether he puts up much of a fight against the Williams car. It's probably not going to benefit either of them if he does have to pit. So we'll see how he reacts to that BMW closing up behind him.
Yeah, I believe Capet, well, actually, you're obviously driving pit at the end of lap 14, which would mean that he would have 8 laps to go, and therefore he would have to basically either save a lap of fuel or do the splash and dash. But as we've seen, only one car so far has done an 8 lap. So he broke. This is Slobodkin. He broke. I don't know. That's a bit of a difficult angle to see, actually. Exactly, because nothing seemed to really go wrong. He must have just literally broke too late.
I think, yeah, because
it's very weird.
His rear seemed to swap ends with his front, so I think that's something to do with brake bias there.
Yeah, it could be.
It looked like he just over-rotated going into the turn and obviously broke too late. That's unfortunate for him.
Yeah, as we're seeing Burlak now coming up behind Risto Capit, and he is going to get past fairly nicely there with the BMW for Williams Esports BenQ, who have had a much better race here than they did back in Silverstone a month ago. As we're seeing Bart now trying to get back up into 11th place there. But yeah, nice easy move for Burlak as well, getting up into 2nd place. So I believe that is pretty much where Williams are going to finish, as Risto, I believe, does need to make a pit stop for at least a lap of fuel. However, he has got a really big gap behind, so just depends if he wants to go really slow to save that lap, or if he's just going to go in anyway just to make it nice and easy. But we also don't know if that P4 Roy McDuff needs to come in as well. We're still yet to see, with 2 laps to go, or at least for Mrcek, who is just starting lap 21. He will have to go onto a 22nd lap, we believe. As we're now seeing Sebastian getting very close, or close again, I should say, to the core team.
Yes, Sebastian, he's managed to catch up quite quickly after that incident. That is very close up into Adana Force. That is not what you want at this point in the race.
Maybe he's having an issue with his brake pedal, because he was coming in very hot into that corner as well. I do hope everything is okay. Maybe he is just way more confident than Lucas, but yeah, he's certainly braking very late. However, that did cost him this position for 11th place, so he needs to maybe calm down a little bit on the brake pedal and try and at least get to the end in these last couple of laps.
Yeah, it's not good when you're struggling on brakes, because especially around this track, when you need to be very quick on your brakes in reaction to things. He is also battling as well, so he needs to be careful, and you can see through here, this is one of the points where you have to be really dependent on your brakes. Maybe it's tyre wear for the Volante Racing Aston Martin, because that combined with how he's using his brakes may have an effect. You can see him getting very close through there. However, I reckon he'll try and make another move again into Dottingahoa, try and defend it into the Yokohama S, and maybe hold on to it until the end of the race. We'll have to see though, because this could be really close between the two of them.
Yeah, and with there being only a couple of laps to go, although for these guys it'll be 2 more after this one, so they still have 3 attempts at the Dottingahoa, but it just depends obviously which way round you want to do. When you have such a long straight like that, it's sort of, maybe at Indianapolis, sometimes you actually want to be second with a lap to go, because then you can get the slipstream and get ahead with them not being able to respond. However, with there still being 2.5 laps to go for these drivers, there's still plenty of time for these guys to try and work out where they want to go and where they want to put themselves on the track.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll see how it all plays out, because as you're saying, that position before Dottingahoa on the final lap could make all of the difference. And I've seen similar things in the past where the person in second, when there's a big straight that comes quite soon before the end of the track or the end of the lap, on that final lap actually has the advantage. So maybe Bart Sebastian could decide to stay behind and go for the gamble of leaving it until the very last moment. Although he may as well have a go at the end of this lap and see whether he can pull away. If not, have another crack at it on that final lap. But he's going to be cutting it very close if he does.
Yes, certainly indeed. And we've now got Bart getting very close. We have seen, as we've just got under 10 minutes to go in the 3 hours of Nordschleife, second round of the GT3 Endurance series by SimRacing.Club. And we are getting to that point now where drivers need to start working out what they're going to do. And Bart is certainly getting very close as we get towards up here to Brunchen. But he's at this point in the track where he can't really overtake. He can't really do too much. But he's certainly quicker, because he keeps on closing up, and then obviously you start to lose a little bit with dirty air and things like that. It's very hard to stay this close all the time. But if he can keep this close through these last couple of corners of Sector 2, before we get out into Sector 3 onto the Duttingerheur, you will then notice the slipstream effect but he needs to make sure that he stays this close because he's doing everything he needs to do right now to make this overtake on the lap, on this lap.
He's just got to try and stay calm, make sure he doesn't make any rash decisions. And yeah, as you said, just stick with Schramek until he gets to the Döttinger so he can have a crack at that 11th position, because up ahead there's a huge gap to the number 10, the P10 Speed and White Racing, which is the number 92 actually, driven by Matthew Fennell. That's yeah, it's a 2.5 minute gap. However, Sebozjan, he's doing a good job at sticking right behind Schramek, isn't he, to try and get that 11th place as they head onto the Döttinger Höhe now.
Yeah, and as they come into what is effectively a sector 3 on the lap times, even though you're pretty much at the end of the race, you have over 3 kilometers of absolutely flat out driving, and you can see Sebozjan here getting the slipstream about halfway down the straight. He's going to be able to get this position once again. Hopefully he remembers how to brake into turn 1 this time round, because it looks like that position is his for now. But can Core come back, or will Volante keep onto that 11th place? Actually, it looks like he's much more confident there coming through Tiergarten, and I think he's finally got that position as long as he can brake on turn 1 this lap.
Yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. He's gained a solid second there, which is going to make it really difficult for the Core team car to respond. And as they go into turn 1, Sebozjan, he just needs to take it easy, and he does so, getting it through there nice. And on the exit, that gap increasing again. So the Volante car, with just like pretty much a whole lap to complete before the timer runs to 0, they've got to hold on to that position. Here we have Gasper Zupan though. That Trojan Donut automotive car, it's been through quite a lot of battles. It's still going P17 ahead of Rafael Zuma. In the top right, you can see the race leader, David Moshek, and he will be the one who crosses the line first to bring an end to the race when that timer runs down to 0. So all of the drivers now pretty much on their final lap. And Gasper Zupan now trying to just to hold off at Rafael Zuma. That Blackbirds racing car, it's not had the greatest race, but it's still going, and that's more than can be said for a fair few of the cars that started this race.
Yeah, indeed. With the amount of DNFs you had, it is almost just a good thing for some of these drivers to get to the end of the race and get yourself and your team some nice points. As we have Basto and Vizluzul come into the pit lane for their splash and dash with just, well, for them, I think it will be 2 laps to go, as they won't just be lapped by Mojek, who's coming through Tiergarten now to start the final lap of the race with, it'll be about 5.5 minutes to go when he gets there. So this is definitely going to be the final lap for David Mojek. He is starting, but obviously that's 25 kilometers for him to go round to get victory for Burst Esport, and he is currently 21.6 seconds ahead of Petter Berlak in the Williams Esport BenQ car as he comes now through the final chicane to start his final lap as well. 21 seconds in 1 lap. Very difficult indeed, considering how close these lap times have been. But second place will still be a big improvement. So will Capit splash and dash? Yes, he is. So he's going to have to put in just 1 lap of fuel to get to the end of this race with only 5 minutes to go. And Rory McDuff is quite a way behind, coming up through the corner onto the Döttinger, where I believe, will have to make a splash and dash as well, which will give Pascal Schmidt that 4th place for Evolution Motorsports as well. So the strategy has been really the big talking point of this race, and despite this sort of top 6, top 7 drivers being very close on lap pace, depending on how you ran your race and how you ran your strategy, obviously it depends where we are going to end up finishing. So it does show you that even in a 3-hour race, strategy is just as important.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Risa Capet, very short pit stop. It's taking a very similar amount of fuel to Basto, because we saw he had a very short pit stop as well, because they really don't need to go very far. It's almost a not quite the speed of a Formula 1 pit stop, but closer to that than a regular GT3 stop. But here is Georgi Nadev. He's going for that 8th position.
Intriguing. So, also just in the corner, I was just seeing, so Rory McDuff has stayed out for the final lap. So he has managed to save the lap of fuel on this stint. And Schmidt hasn't been able to catch him up despite doing that. So McDuff has done a really good final stint here to keep that 4th place. So Schmidt, I don't think actually in the end is going to be able to get past and get that 4th position. So fair play to McDuff for making that strategy work with Max Barkley now. And the other Knight of Alex, number 60, is he going to have to make final pit stop? So he is. So he couldn't save the fuel where Rory McDuff did. So that was a really good job there by the number 30 car. As we will now focus on Nadev. Can he get up into this 8th position? He's almost close enough to get a slipstream, and if he has a really good couple of corners here, he's only got 3 more corners until they get onto the back straight, and that is really going to be his best overtaking opportunity, as we've seen all afternoon, or all evening I should say. But can David Junt hold on for this 8th place? Although actually look how much less speed he took through the mini carousel, and now as they head up the hill, it looks like this is going to be a pretty much slam dunk overtake. And I think David Junt is going to be down into 9th place.
Yes, however, they are going to have to go for one further lap. And that might give Junt the opportunity to take back the position he's just lost along the Dottinger hole. One thing to mention, though, is that Nico Barkley in the Monaco car, he's still in 7th. He's just 5 seconds off Max Barkley off that. But here comes David Junt with the second volley of slipstream. He's going to move to the inside. This could be very risky. We've seen some incidents doing the exact same thing earlier in the race. They're going to go side by side as they head through Gelgenkopf. Antonius Bucher in the... Oh, there's contact. And that's going to be a Corvette round. And I think everyone saw that coming.
Yeah, we saw that coming about 1 kilometer before that happened. And unfortunately, David Junt, he tried to hold on. We lost sight a little bit with the trees, so I don't know. But I think something like that will probably just come down to being a racing incident. You can't go 2 cars wide through the Tiergarten like that. It's just too tight. There's too many big curbs and bumps. And unfortunately, David Junt has lost out. Fortunately, he's going to be able to hold on to that 9th place as he starts his final lap now, because Fennell isn't really close enough. We've moved our attention to Zuma in 18th place. He's got Michael Francesconi. So Masciudi has got out of that car with Francesconi getting in. And they're now battling side by side up to the Lauda King. Who's going to come out on top? It looks like Francesconi just got his Pescara car there into 18th place. So Blackbird's down into 19th position as Fennell has come in for a splash and dash on the final lap for the number 92.
I have to say, I think Junt's very lucky to actually be able to get away with that. With only 1 lap to go, really, to have spun it there, he could have had a lot more damage than he received, because although it was a relatively big impact, he hasn't lost a position, especially because Fennell has gone into the pits now. He can quite relaxedly take it around the track and just get it to the end. He's got a 50-second gap behind him to Fennell now, but this is going to be the replay from onboard David Junt. So you can see with the second slipstream, he's going to move to the inside. As they head under the bridge then, he's going to stick to the inside line. You can see the BMW now in the mirror, so at the rear left, actually side by side, and it's hard to say whether the BMW pulled across too early, thinking that he'd backed out, or I think that will have to be put down to a racing incident though, because it's just too close to try and go side by side through there.
Yeah, not the place you want to do that, especially 1 lap to go. But then you can understand 1 lap to go, you really want to hold on to that position, but yeah, he tried, so we can't complain about that, because at least he's trying to keep the position, but never really going to work, unfortunately. I think it's one of the Van Thor brothers a couple of years ago had a really big accident there. I don't believe he was going side by side, but it's not a nice part of the track to have an accident. And fortunately, he was able to keep on going. But we are looking at David Mocek as the timer has already hit 0. confirming that this is the final lap of the race. And once he gets to that finish line, that will be the final for everyone. And yet they just sort of rested on each other. Maybe Nedev came a little bit too far to the left, actually.
Damaged car coming to the end of sector 1.
So maybe, yeah, a little bit less fault on David Junt than I was initially saying. But even then, side by side is always going to end up like that. As Nico Barkley has lost his rear wing on the final lap of the race. So fortunately, he's going to be able to, not go into the pit lane. He'll be able to just go straight onto the start finish, but still not what you want to be doing. As Zupan and Francesconi, these guys are actually just behind David Mocek. So this is the final lap for these guys as well, as they are 1 lap down. So this is the final opportunity for Francesconi to get past. As we come through Gelgenkopf for the final time for these drivers. David Mocek is a little bit further up the road than these guys, so he will be crossing the finish line. But what can Francesconi do? Can he get the slipstream? It looks like he's just about close enough, but that Porsche seems to have fairly nice top speed. Now they're getting closer and closer, but once again, you might see a situation where the Porsche starts to come back, although he's actually overtaken fairly late on the straight. Now Francesconi is going to have to go side by side through the kink under the Bilstein Bridge, but he's already made that move. But David Mocek is coming through the final couple of corners now, and he is going to take another win for Burst Esports. Second race of the season and second win. They have got full maximum points. So congratulations to him and Yanis Savicic. They have out-strategized all their rivals, and they have won the 3 hours of Nordschleife, the second race of the GT3 Endurance Series by SimRacing.Club. Awesome performance from those guys. And they're going to finish some 17 seconds ahead of Peter Burlak. So really good job there on the strategy from those guys at Burst Esport. So Peter Burlak gets into second place. And Risto Capet is so far behind. He's about a minute behind because of that strategy. So let's have a look at this replay of Nico Barkley. Just lost the rear end there, coming up to Hockheiken, but he has lost his rear wing.
That is heartbreaking for the Wanako team, because they've been doing so well, but they've got to travel so far with a heavily damaged car. They've already lost one position to Nadev and another one to Yunt. They might just keep clear of Fennel because that's a 45-second gap, but you have to admit, after such an extraordinary drive by both of the drivers, by Nico Barkley and Borja Milan, for it to end like that on the final lap as well, when they weren't challenging anyone, is just properly heartbreaking. But this is Risto Capet now. He's coming through the last couple of turns for the final time. He's going to take third place for the R8G esports car. It's been an interesting race with the terms of strategy. It didn't go too well though, with Erhan Yoyoski forgetting to change tyres, and that really didn't help their strategy. But Rory McDuff, he's going to be next across in the Lita Velux McLaren 720S GT3, doing quite well there to make it up into fourth place actually, and slipping in nicely. That's going to be a good amount of points for the championship. Pascal Schmidt for the Evolution Motorsports is going to come home P5. He's definitely going to be happy with that, as are the rest of the drivers for Evolution.
Yeah, that was a pretty good battle there between Nita Velux and Evolution Motorsports, and they both did 2 7-lap stints and 1 8-lap, but Evo did it in the middle stint, whereas Nita Velux managed it in the final stint. So yeah, pretty good job actually from those boys. As such is the way, we've only had 5 finishes already, because Max Barkley coming down, he's 3 minutes behind, which is quite incredible really, after only 3 hours. So that is losing 1 minute every hour on average. So yeah, not the absolute best day in terms of speed, but still getting 6th place isn't too bad. As he comes through the
damaged car is midway through sector 2.
Comes through the final part to get his 6th position. And we're actually going to have to be waiting quite a while for the very final finisher, because Vizuzil in 16th is 8 minutes behind. So I don't know if we'll wait that long as Max Barkley comes across for 6th place. We'll actually see if we can get an an interview with Mrocek and Simoncic, because I want to see what they feel like and what they can try and do with their or what they try and did, I should say, with their strategy, because that was really the main point with them winning this race.
Yeah, that's the second win in a row for the Burst Esports team. That's going to put them on 100 points in the championship. They're looking set for an excellent season this year, and we'll see how it all plays out. Still got 6 races to go, and we've still got drivers to make it back across the line. Georgian and Dev here taking P7 then in that BMW 4 Go team. He's going to be happy with that. Well fought for. He's done a lot of battling to come home there. David Yunt in the Scuderia Basilea Corvette, and that's going to be P8 as well. He has fought a lot for that position, and we've got a couple of other guys. Here is Nico Barkley, and I think that's Matthew Fenner in the Speedy Might. He's going to overtake on the final lap. That is just heartbreaking for the BMW team.
Now, Monaco have not had the opening 2 races of the season that they would have wanted at all. They only got 1 point back in Silverstone, and now being overtaken by Fennell there in the 92. They're going to be getting even less points than they would have hoped. They were up in the top 5 in the opening parts of the lap of the race, I should say, but unfortunately that was taken away from them when Milan spun coming out onto the Duttinger Hurt. And then obviously Nico Barkley having a spin and losing his rear wing. In fact, he had a bit of a spin earlier on when he was in the car as well, which lost him some time. But as we've seen the top 10 come through, we'll get a quick interview with the race-winning team, the double race-winning team, opening the season here in GT3 Endurance. So David Mrocek and Yerny Simoncic, first of all, congratulations and well done. But how did you pull that strategy off? Because it looked very weird when you did a very short stint in the middle there.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, is that question for me or for Tierney?
Oh, for both of you. For both of you.
Yeah. So basically, before the race, it was such a gamble for us, because there was like 3 or 4 ways that we could have just gone here, but we've just picked that the one with the short stint after the longer one, and basically double stinting the tires. And well, actually it's a big surprise that it worked out, because to be fair, I was very skeptical. I was really afraid about the tire wear after the refuel, but I think also due to the low temperatures, the tire wear was just fine. So it was mostly about just managing the pace after the refuel. So yeah, we are very happy about it.
And how do you think this is going to work when we get towards tracks later in the season? Because obviously you out-strategized Williams and R8G today. Do you think you can continue this on? Because obviously you've already got 2 race victories.
Really, it's so hard to say, because this race, the best strategy was completely different than the one that we've used at Silverstone, because at Silverstone we just had to change the tires after each pit stop, and I think that was the quickest way. But here it was again completely different. Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, I mean, but so far in first 2 rounds it was just perfect for us.
And a question for Yene, how was that pole position up? Because if I remember rightly, you got pole by about a second to second place. So was that a really good lap for you, or do you think there was a little bit left on the table?
Yep, the pole lap was it was good, but it was bad. There was one huge mistake in the small carousel, because in the corner before I got stuck on the exit curb and could not bring the car over to the left. So I completely missed the banking and almost got caught out onto the grass after the corner. So I lost probably 6, 7, 8 tenths there. So it should have been 7 minutes 55 seconds. But yeah, I was surprised to see other teams like Williams and RAG being a bit off pace in qualifying, and then being fast in the race. So yeah, it was good, but I think it was the most important part of the strategy that we did, because we had to get the pole and we had to lead the first stint. And what made the strategy work today was that I think Erhan behind thought that I was single stinting, so he did not go for the move. If he thought I was saving tires, he would have gone for the move and pulled away, but he was just saving fuel and thought he would jump me, but it did not happen. So it was great fun in the last lap. Seeing how like David was on team radio, and I think he was watching his stream, and he was saying, yeah, he's pushing like crazy, and I was keeping the gap, because I have saved the tire so much more that without even hard pushing, I was keeping the gap, and it felt really good. And I think even without issues for both competitor teams, it would have been a thrilling end to the race, because all the strategies would be within 10 seconds in the end. So it would have come down to the driver's pace. But still, I think in any way we would have a slight edge over them because of how the first stint had gone.
Yeah, with Petter Belak finishing 17.8 seconds behind you, even with that drive-through for Stefanko as well, I think is around 15 seconds. So you might have just been able to hold on as well. But so we're already a quarter of the way through the season now. So do you feel, you personally are going to be able to carry this on? Because obviously that stint at the beginning of the race was pretty dominant with the with how you controlled it. Are you confident moving to Imola next time out that you can continue doing that yourself?
I think on average we will have slightly worse pace than Roman Grosjean, like slightly worse raw pace. So I'm still looking at them, probably for Williams too, because we don't know how the BMW DOP will work out in the future. So yeah, I mean, there is nothing much to say. We will we will just do our best. Probably the strategies will be more straightforward for the shorter tracks, and yeah, we will enjoy race by race and see what happens.
All right, well, final congratulations to both of you, and also your other teammate Michi Hoyer. So 2 out of 2, and we hope to be speaking to you again some point this season. So good luck for the remaining races.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Hugo, that was certainly an interesting race in the end. But as you can see, top 10 on the screen now. We got Burst Esports, followed by Williams Esports, Ben Q, R8G Esports in third place. Nita Velox getting fourth, with Evolution Motorsports in fifth place. Nice Velox in sixth, with their sister team Go Team Racing in seventh. Scuderia Bezelia in eighth, and Speedy Might and Wanako rounding out the top 10. But Hugo, that was certainly a bit of an interesting race, maybe a bit more interesting than we would have expected, but it certainly gave us a very good result in the end.
Yeah, definitely. There was action everywhere you looked, really. There was never a dull moment during that race. And even though we had something like 10 DNFs, those that kept racing, it really did put up an excellent show. And yeah, I think we couldn't really have asked for more from the Nordschleife today. And
even here on the second page, you can see drivers down, Zupan, Zuma, and Grau, even down in those lower tier places. They even gave us really good battling despite being a bit further down as well. So yeah, overall, really good race. And we obviously have quite a few races left this season, because we have a total of 8 races this season. And the next race for the GT3 Endurance will be on the 19th of December for the 3 hours of Imola. The week prior to that, I should say, on the 12th of December, we will have the 6 hours of Imola for the VEC as well. So do remember to check both of those ones out And as you can see, the remaining races all the way up until the 22nd of May 2021 with the yet to be announced 3-hour race. But that is pretty much it from here at the Nordschleife. So we thank you very much for watching SimRacing.Club. And until the next event from us, we wish you a very warm goodbye.